your student handout. Hopefully you've had an opportunity to read I'm not going to read all 27 things that you're going to learn over the next 2 days that we're together, and then you'll be with us for 8 Fridays. Ooh. So we're going to do the getting to know you right now. And I'll start, and then we're going to go around the room, and I want you to answer your company name, who you're with, and where you're located in the state. Okay, so where you're located, how long you've been a principal broker, or if you're not, why you want to be, and we'll still love you once we get the why. And if you do manage, how many brokers you manage. And then the question is, share the top 2 areas that you enjoy about being a principal broker. I'd rather have you answer one thing you enjoy and one thing that keeps you up at night. Okay, so instead of, what is that one thing that you wake up at 3 in the morning and you go, holy crap, what is that one thing? And I'm going to keep track of that as we go around the room. And like I said, everybody needs to have their video on. If I'm seeing your name or a picture, you need to have your video on, and hopefully relatively stationary, because I get seasick if y'all move around too much. So, good morning, Kim. Okay, so let's start. And I feel like Miss Judy in Romper Room, but I'm going to just kind of call you as I see you around the Zoom room. So Kelly Shanks, we'll start with you, and your name, your company, where you're located in the state, and then the other questions.
Hi, everyone. So Kelly Shanks, and I own Ben Dreams Realty. Oh, I don't think my speaker's working. Can you hear me?
We can hear you just fine.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hold on, sorry.
And if everybody else would keep their speakers muted unless you're talking. Unless you're talking, please stay on mute.
So sorry about that.
Because it creates background.
I lost my speaker. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you fine.
Okay, sorry about that. Technical fail here.
Okay.
So Kelly Shanks, I own Ben Dreams Realty, a small little boutique office in Central Oregon. And I've been a principal broker for 4 years and manage 6 agents. And I think maybe I'm still trying to find what I like about being a principal broker. It's a little stressful. I do like all my agents, super fun group. I guess the main thing that keeps me up at night is if they don't do something, then I feel like I've failed to inform them how that needs to happen. And that's it.
Thank you, Kelly. And I think you just said what everybody else is probably going to say, but let's get creative here. So Lisa.
Need to unmute myself. Good morning, everyone. Let me say I'm so excited to be here. I have nightmares, at night thinking, can I get on the Zoom meeting okay in the morning? Anyway, I'm here. I'm Lisa Anderson. I am the managing principal broker of John L. Scott in beautiful Sandy, Oregon. I manage 30-something agents. I received my principal broker license in 2002 and became a managing broker about 5 years ago. And I have been, I will say that what I like about it is training and mentoring. I really enjoy that. And I tend to keep a good rapport with all of my brokers. I'm one of those that they call me at 9 o'clock, I answer the phone. Obviously they have a problem. So I try to be there for them. What keeps me up at night sometimes is compliance review, keeping them all on track. And I find that some, I'll just say it can be a little bit lazy. And you know, get the signatures, do what needs to happen in a timely manner. So that's my story. And I'm happy to be here today.
Thanks, Lisa, and welcome. Okay, next I see Bob Lane.
Good morning. My name is Bob Lane. I'm with the Associates Real Estate in Prineville, Oregon. I've been the managing principal broker here for about 3 years. I managed 13 brokers. I like best teaching and training. Excuse me. And what keeps me up is keeping everybody on track, making sure that the brokers aren't getting lax about getting signatures and times on contracts. Just keeping everything moving forward, and it seems like the more we go on, it's more important to keep track of the contracts and all of the signatures that need to be on there.
Absolutely. Especially in today's, especially in multiple offer situations, and we'll do a little bit deeper dive into that later on. Anita, you're up next.
Good morning.
Oh, good morning, Anita. We don't see your video, or we don't see you. Can you move your camera?
I can see her.
Oh, there we
Yeah.
go. Well, you're looking at me. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. Anita Keller with 1905 Properties. I am a solo business. Just started last fall, and so the only thing that keeps me up at night is making sure that I want to have this, and so I really appreciate that the risk management is the first one. So just making sure that I'm all legal, and I'm in Bend, Oregon.
And what keeps you up at night?
Oh, just that, making sure, just wanting to make sure that I'm, dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's.
Okay, I see what's happening. You're on twice. So you have do you see your other cameras? So you're on twice. So you're moving on the one. We might have to have Katie do something to black that one out. But that's fine. We'll work on it, Anita, not your, okay.
Okay.
Let's see.
Thank you.
Lila or Leela? Lila? Unmute.
Yeah. Yes, I was trying. It's Lila.
Lila.
So I'm Lila Timmons with Next Home Picket Fence Realty. I'm in Depot Bay, Oregon.
I'm going to be there next week.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
It's a great little place.
At Candle House.
Yep. Not too far.
Mm.
So I've been a principal broker for about a year, and I have one broker that I work with. Basically, I'm a new brokerage, so just learning new things, trying to expand and grow. So that's what I enjoy. And what keeps me up at night is what I don't know.
That's a good one. But you don't know what you don't know. That's why we're here. Okay. That's why we're here, is we're gonna hit some of those spots where you're like, oh, I didn't know that. And hopefully you'll say that to yourself quite a few times over the next 8 weeks. Or I knew that and I forgot. Or I knew that and I'm just not doing it. So we'll be covering a lot of those things. So next I see Cindy.
Hi, I'm Cindy Thackeray, and I'm also with John L. Scott representing in Beaverton, and I've been a managing broker for 4 years. I have 90 agents. I think I said Beaverton. And what I love about it is that I'm competitive. And so I like to help my agents also see that competitive side of it and be a part of their success. Because then it makes me feel successful when they're successful. So being able to hold their hands through that. And then what keeps me up is really the risk management. And am I doing what I need to be doing to train them to make sure they're checking that box on line 13 or, whatever it is that they're missing all the time. So that's the one thing is, am I doing it right?
I see Jenny next on my screen.
Excellent. Jenny Turner, Lovejoy Real Estate. We have an office in the Pearl. We're a small boutique brokerage, 8 licensed agents. We also have a Vancouver office as well, so we do both sides of the river. I think I got licensed as a principal broker in 2003, but I don't exactly remember. I've been a managing broker on and off over the years. Most recently, about 4 years ago, we opened our own brokerage. I like the training and the mentoring of new agents. So I think for me, it's that teaching them the right way to do it, and they know the right way to do it and be good agents. And then what I don't like is what I don't know, like not knowing what I don't know. And so that's the scariest thing, I think, being our own small brokerage. So that's why I'm doing this.
Awesome. Welcome. Marty, I see you next.
Okay, am I unmuted?
You are.
Okay. Marty Wells, I am with Lux Christie's International Real Estate, based out of Lake Oswego. I've been a principal broker, I can't remember how many years. I think 2007, 2006 or 2007. I've been a managing broker for 10 months now, and I have 24 brokers. You know, I'm going to echo what a number of you said. The thing that keeps me awake at night is, did I miss something? And I'm not really concerned about missing initials or check boxes not being marked. I'm actually pretty good at that. It's when I'm confronted with an issue with one of my agents, I'm kind of echoing what Lila said. Do I know enough to be able to guide them properly? Did I miss something? And that's what wakes me up in the middle of the night. The thing I enjoy the most is being able to counsel my brokers to a point where they don't lose sleep at night. And I tell them up front, that's one of my goals, is to make sure that they're all able to sleep every night. So there's a lot involved with that, but that's what turns me on about what we do.
Awesome. Okay, so next I see Mia, or is it Maya Shoemaker? Maya?
It's Mia Shoemaker.
Mia. Okay, I want to make sure I said it right.
Okay. Yeah, for some reason the video's not working. I already tried logging off and on. So Mia Shoemaker, I'm with Keller Williams Realty Mid-Willamette. I've been a principal broker for about 3 years now. And the last 6 months I've been the reviewing principal broker, overseeing 5 branches, about 160 agents. And I actually just gave up that position on Monday to start my own team.
Okay, wow.
So,
Awesome. So while you were doing that, what did you like about doing it, and what made you want to become a team of your own?
I love helping people. That's my favorite, is to help people out. And then the most stressful was of course not being able to control other people, not getting things done in a timely manner, having to step in after we were so far down a rabbit trail and there were major issues, then finally being called in and, after the fact, instead of, receiving the information throughout the process and being able to help guide them along the way. And so I'm really excited to start a team and be able to work more one-on-one, hand-in-hand with those agents to help educate them, support, and guide them through the whole transaction process.
Okay, thank you. Kim, hi Kim, how are you?
Good, thank you. It's good to see you, Deborah. And I'm sorry, I run a Chamber of Commerce meeting every single Friday, and it ends at 9. So.
Oh yeah, well, we're just getting started, so that's okay.
So I'm Kim Arscott. I'm a principal broker as of December. I'm not a managing broker yet, but I want to put all the tools in my pocket in order to put myself in the best position that I can. What keeps me up all night is forgetting a form, forgetting a checkbox, figuring out how I could be the best advocate for my client and mentor for other realtors to establish a professional expectation of our industry.
Awesome. Catherine, hi Catherine, how are you?
Good morning. Hi, Deborah. Nice to see you. How you doing?
Good, nice to see you.
So, okay, the two questions are, what do we enjoy and what
Well,
keeps
your
us up
name,
at night?
your name and where your company and where you're located. So we
Okay.
kind of get geographically
Yep.
where we're
Yeah.
representing here. So,
Sure.
and
Okay,
then
so
what you like and what keeps you up at night.
we're a small brokerage in Portland, Oregon. We do both sales and property management. I've been a managing principal broker owner since 2002. So a long time. Over the years, I've had quite a few different brokers. Currently, I oversee 3 in addition to myself. What I enjoy about it is it keeps me youthful in the industry as well, keeps me learning, keeps me challenged. I like that the younger brokers are in tune with technology and some of the things that have really moved our industry forward. What keeps me up at night would probably be client expectations versus reality on the property management side, and then getting the brokers that we manage to turn in the paperwork timely so we can check it. You know, some of what I've heard already, just, you know, I don't so much have the problem with people doing their paperwork wrong. You know, I've trained them well to double check with me if they're pretty green, that sort of thing, but it's getting it in a timely fashion once the client has signed it has been kind of the Achilles heel. So hopefully I'll come away with some magic from this class on that one. Thank you.
Thanks, Catherine. Yeah, it was funny when you said that, I saw a whole bunch of heads nodding yes. So I think you guys are all kind of coming from the same place. So this is going to be an awesome group. Peter, you're next.
Good morning, everyone. This is Peter Fricke with iHomes. Office is in Monmouth, Oregon. And hello, Mia. So I've been in this business 4 years now, and I'm ready to get my principal broker license. I'm interested in learning more about risk management, improving my craft, and protecting my clients.
Good. So you haven't had any sleepless nights yet?
Oh, plenty of that. So.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Jenny, I see that you're next.
I think you mean Ginny, Kansas. Sure.
Yeah,
nice to meet you guys. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm a managing principal broker for 3 years and a principal broker since 2010, and am in Central Oregon. My brokerage is Ginny, Kansas Real Estate. I'm a sole practitioner and owner. I think what excites me the most about this industry is all of the changes and learning to adapt to the changes and learning how to make other people that I'm working with, whether they're brokers, lenders, escrow, clients, all work together, understanding what our limitations are and what our successes are, and helping us to get better all together so we can have a better, easier transaction. And I guess what keeps me up at night is, did I do that the best of my ability? What can I learn to do better or faster or smarter in a way that can be more easily understood by the people I work with? And how can I make sure that my intents are actual, statements or policies or procedures, and how to do that in the best efficient way I can. And I learn every day, and it's just so humbling.
Great, thank you. Next, it looks like Sue Lockhart. I don't see your video on, but can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
We can, yes.
Okay, thank you. I am working on the video. I should have that in about an hour and a half. I'm going to switch computers.
Okay.
So this is Sue Lockhart. I'm with Caldwell Banker, Sun Country Realty in Prineville, Oregon. I've been in real estate for about 20 years now. I've had my principal broker's license for 3. I was a managing principal broker the first 2 years of that 3, looking over 8 agents, and they were awesome. Currently just doing my own real estate stuff now. And, but I think when I was doing the principal broker over the managing part of it, the thing that I enjoyed the most was watching the growth of those agents, watching them, you know, just basically blossom and, you know, kind of come into their own, figuring out what their weaknesses and their strengths were. And as far as what keeps me up at night, I think it's probably timelines. And not that I don't have a good system, it's that so often we are dependent upon whether it's our own clients or folks on the other side, and just trying to keep those timelines in check.
Awesome. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
And I think that was everybody except Jeremy. Jeremy, you want to introduce yourself so they know who's the legal mind in the room?
Jeremy Rogers. I'm the Director of Legal Affairs and Public Policy at OAR, and I'll just be kind of hanging out and answering questions or jumping in as needed. I just want to warn everyone, I do unfortunately had a meeting that I had to take at 10 o'clock. I'll be out for half an hour or an hour, but if there's any questions that come up that you want to direct to me, I'll be back on after that meeting and we'll be able to answer those. Apologize for that.
That's okay. We're glad to have you here when we need those legal questions answered. So, and then also we have with us Katie. Katie, I know she's behind the OAR education box, but Katie's our administrator for the day, and she's going to be moving you around when we go into breakouts and making sure that everybody's in attendance. So she'll be monitoring to make sure that that we're seeing you on video, or that she knows what's happening with your video. So, well, I'm Deborah Gisriel. I'm the managing broker for eXp Realty for the whole state of Oregon. I have 620 agents. I do not manage all of them myself. Please don't, you know, that would be a heart attack area. I have a fantastic staff. So that's my day job. But I got into real estate in 1976. I've been in it 44 years. I was 12 years old when I started, just not really, but I was actually in law school in Baltimore, University of Baltimore, and that was when I got the real estate bug and took a detour into real estate rather than going to work for a law firm. And the rest is history. So I've been doing this for 44 years. I've been in Oregon since 2002. And so half of my career was in Maryland and the other half now has been here in Oregon. So that's my history and my story. And as we go through, we'll get little tidbits from each other as we share and move forward. So the next 2 days that you'll be with me, and then I get you again for 2 more days for what is day 3, is risk management. And I want to start off by saying that we don't manage risk. Okay, we manage the activities that create risk. Okay, so I want you to kind of come at the mindset of the risk is all around us. We have it every day. Everything we do, everything our agents do, not just our business, but our lives. And one of the things we're going to help you evaluate for yourself is what is your level of risk tolerance. So we're going to come at this from risk management, but also from risk tolerance. And I will tell you that after the last class, we did have a principal broker who decided that her risk tolerance no longer suited her role. So she was excited and made the decision to no longer be a principal broker as a result of being here. So, you know, also come at this from that standpoint is, You know, is my personal risk tolerance, my personal staying awake at night outweigh the benefits or not? Or the benefits outweigh the risks? So that's going to be your personal conversation, and we're going to help guide you through that. So we're going to kick off with a test. And in your books on page 5, there is a fair housing quiz. Now, I also want you to come at this from the perspective of, we assume, and you know what happens when you assume, but that your knowledge, I'm not going to teach you fair housing. Okay, I come into this thinking and assuming that you already know the fair housing laws. What we're going to talk about is, how does that knowledge impact your role as a principal broker, and how do you manage the risk related to fair housing in your business? Okay, and that's how we're going to approach all the topics. I'm not going to teach you that, you know, that the history of fair housing and what the protected classes are and all of that. We're not going to spend time on that. We're going to spend time on, how do I manage that knowledge? You know, I know that. Now, am I certain that my agents know it, and are they complying? So the 2 words that I wrote down as all of you were speaking was compliance. And that's a big one. So we're going to talk about methodology and ways to make sure that you are in compliance and your agents are in compliance. And it's never 100%, you guys. I mean, as good as most of us are, we still have those mavericks out there, and you know who they are. I want you to put in your mind right now, who's that one agent in your office that you manage, that when you pick up the phone and it's them on the other end, you go, okay, what now? You know who they are. Don't tell me, but visualize their face, because that's who we're teaching to today and next week. We're teaching you how to manage that person. Okay, so keep that person as kind of the person in your mind. And if you don't have one of those, God bless you. Really, I mean, if you don't have one of those, God bless you. And if you are your own, I'm sorry. So, so let's take 5 minutes, and I want you to answer the questions on page 5 and 6. And then as a group, we will answer those questions. Okay, so 5 minutes, and then we'll reconvene to go over those questions. Okay, guys, 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, I'm gonna jettison through this. So if at any time you have questions, we'll stop. But your basic knowledge of this information is going to help us when we break out into the case studies. Okay, testers may approach a housing provider, meaning you, without any intention of purchasing a house. I mean, the testers can come into your office without any intention of purchasing real estate. True or false? True. True. Okay, an owner of a single family home is exempt from the federal fair housing laws if the owner does not own or have interest in more than 3 single family houses at once. True. Now, Catherine, you might have some different, Jeremy, go ahead.
Oh, I said this is a good time to jump in to mention that the test that we're all taking here is are about federal fair housing laws. Oregon.
Oh, thank you for that. Yes, this is federal.
Yeah, and so Oregon law does not have this exception.
So if you're, I was going to say, thank you for jumping in, because I was going to mention to Catherine that yes, Oregon is different because she does a lot of property management. So yes, that is correct, that this is federal, and Oregon does not have that same exemption. So there are no exemptions in Oregon. So
Thank you.
yeah. Yep. So an aggrieved party can file a complaint if they can prove they are a member of a protected class, they are financially qualified to obtain the property, were rejected by the defendant, and that the housing opportunity remained open after the rejection. True. Discrimination needs to be intentional before a complaint can be filed. False. And this, guys, is a huge topic right now at NAR. And as a result of where we are society-wise, unintended or discrimination is really being looked at. And especially one of the things we're going to talk about on this is consistency with how your agents work with parties. And we'll do a little deeper dive into that. Okay, now this is fair housing federal level. Remember, Oregon has additional protected classes. So the protected classes under federal fair housing is D, race, color, religion, sex, disability, familial status, and national origin. Now, Oregon takes it 3 steps further, which is sexual orientation, source of income, and what's the third one there? Jeremy, step in here. There's 3.
Marital status.
Marital status, right? Marital status. So those, the Oregon takes it beyond the federal. So the definition of disability includes both physical and mental. Yes. Okay, and this is another topic that we're hearing quite a bit of, and that's the disparate treatment is an intentional act of discrimination directed at those protected by law. The answer is true, and Jeremy, you and I have had a long conversations about that, and where we're seeing this really come into play recently is with criminal background checks, and it having on fair housing having a disparate impact on a protected class. So disparate impact means it affects one group greater than all others. So Catherine, are you seeing that? I know I've been on committees when you've been sitting in there and we've talked about the criminal background check being a disparate impact. Do you have any comment as you do a lot of property management and in Portland, so you're a lot smarter than I am on this topic. So I think it's great you're in the room.
Our company does a lot of it, yes, and where it comes up is the expectation of the client. But it's interesting, I don't really agree with the answer because, shoot, I just lost which number we were on. What number was that question?
8.
Number 8. Is the
Are you
intentional acts of
questioning the
discrimination
intentional?
yeah, exactly. I am questioning that because my understanding from the HUD guidelines that had come out, the ruling and the paper that they put out was that that essentially the way we have structured screening has created this disparate impact. And it didn't sound to me from the HUD white paper put out that it had to be intentional or unintentional. If it creates a disparate impact, that you can't have that sort of criteria. What I see happening now is, the changing of ordinance or, law at the state level that impacts this. And what I do see is a constant having to train the general public that this is changing. And that's where we end up with a disconnect between client satisfaction, because expectation of what you can actually do in Oregon and what you can actually do in Oregon are two very different things.
Right.
So I kind of disagree with the answer. It's my answer.
Right. And again, this was at the federal level, and bringing it down to Oregon, I would agree. That's why I question the intentional as well. And Jeremy, you wanna chime in?
I just think that because the question itself is actually talking about disparate treatment, not disparate impact. So that's why it's intentional.
Okay.
Yeah.
Disparate treatment. So essentially, would that be something like you understand or perceive them to have a criminal history, so you don't offer them the opportunity to apply?
Well, I just think this disparate treatment is the traditional way we would think about discrimination in terms of intentionally discriminating. And so that's sort of the stuff that's covered directly in the law. The obvious forms of discrimination, the disparate impact is the things that you do that have the effect of discriminating without the intent. So I would put the whole criminal category in the disparate impact rather than the disparate treatment.
Right.
I see. Like
Okay.
criminal screening by definition is disparate impact. Yeah.
Disparate impact.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Directly. Yeah.
Okay, this next one. And Jeremy, do you happen to have access to that link to the New York case that you could put in the chat box for them to look at later?
Yeah, I will track that down.
Track that down, and that'll be homework. But question 9 is steering. And steering is C, the real estate broker makes decisions for buyers or renters about where they should live. So you're steering them to or away from particular neighborhoods based on a protected class. Okay. Number 10, Title VII prohibits property owners from refusing to make reasonable modifications to the dwelling to accommodate a tenant. This would include C, installation of the bars around the bathtubs. Disclosing information about a property or neighborhood's population, which is part of any protected class, is discriminatory housing practice prohibited by law. Yeah, obviously, that's what we're talking about. 1 year is allowed to file an alleged discriminatory practice complaint. Yes, true. And fair housing regulations prohibit the use of the words "no children." True. And which of the following statements are true? D, real estate advertisements may not state real estate advertisements may not state an explicit preference, limitation, or discrimination based on familial status. Okay, so y'all get an A+ for fair housing knowledge. Now we're going to put you to work. Katie, are you there? Katie? Okay, well, normally what we would do at this point is Katie would, okay, there's a technological snafu, but at this point, we would be breaking you into 4 groups that we will do throughout the entire class. You'll be put into some discussion groups. But since Katie, Gerald, well, you're not at OAR. I'm not seeing Katie.
I'll shoot her a text message though.
Would you? So in the meantime, we're going to go do some case studies. But let's start the first one while we're waiting for Katie, because then that way we'll have four groups. So Matt, an Hispanic man, has several telephone conversations and email exchanges with Sarah, a new to the business broker in your office. Okay, now here's where we start to get into, this is your agent, you're the principal broker or the manager, and Sarah is the one that you're training, mentoring, and ultimately responsible for. So that's how I want you to approach this, not as Sarah, but as her manager. Sarah shares how excited she is that Matt will be a new buyer client for her. You happen to be in the lobby, okay, and you observe Sarah as she meets Matt for the first time. It is obvious by her facial expression and body language that her attitude towards Matt has changed significantly from when she first was all excited about having a new client. So now she's had a change in persona, a change in attitude, a change in excitement, a change in her body language. All of a sudden, she becomes curt and almost rude. Later that day, you receive a call from Matt who complains about Sarah's behavior, which made him feel embarrassed and discriminated against. Okay, so here's a situation. You have someone who walked into your lobby of your office. Your brand new agent meets this buyer, and her treatment and reaction to him, and his being a Hispanic man puts him into a protected class. What are the next steps that you should take? Okay, so now you've had a client contact you, and what would you do now to ensure compliance by your company of fair housing laws? So how many of you, when I was reading this, felt an emotional response to what I was reading? And how many of you have felt, oh my goodness, you know, did she outwardly say anything that was discriminatory? We don't, you know. So what would you do? Who wants to, what's the first thing you would do?
I'll jump in.
Yes, go ahead.
Well, the first thing I want to understand is, what is it about this person that made her uncomfortable? So we need to question the broker, because it may, and in my personal experience, probably had absolutely nothing to do with race. Maybe she recognized him. There are so many other factors that may be involved besides the fact that the gentleman in question is Hispanic. We need to come to a good understanding of that first.
And how would you do that?
Well, you sit down with her and discuss it.
Okay. These are those hard conversations that as a managing principal broker that you're going to have. But with all due respect, and I agree with you 100%, does that matter if he felt discriminated against?
No, it doesn't matter if he felt that way. We need to deal with his perception of the issue and immediately remedy that by immediately answering his needs and questions and going about it in a consistent policy procedural way with questions and helping him to determine where he needs to move further, regardless of what class he is, that we have those same universal principles that we apply.
And how would you have responded to him? Okay, because we know now we're going to do some education and have a conversation with your agent, with Sarah. When Matt was on the phone with you, what would you have responded to Matt from a risk management standpoint? How would you have responded? Because remember, this is your first, where that little voice in your head should have been going red flag, red flag, red flag. Okay. Because how you handle it at that point could very well determine the outcome. So what would you think is a good, yeah, Catherine?
To me, it's the first thing that happens, like the feeling that comes up is like concern or that like pit in your gut. But to me, I feel like you can't, the best thing I've discovered for risk management is taking the bull by the horns. So like picking up the phone and having a conversation with the person. I actually think I really appreciate Marty's feedback too, like finding out what was happening.
What really happened? What's the real thing here? And maybe even letting him know that if it's something that, you know, and in my, I would use the feel, felt, found, you know, when Matt calls and said, gosh, you know, I understand how you feel. I'm sorry that you feel that way. What can I do? How can I help? What would you like to see happen next? And I think if you approach it from that, is that, you know, gosh, I'm so sorry. And I understand how you feel. What can I do to help you? Because you don't, here you're trying to make it better, apologize, but not admit guilt. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's that fine line there. So, again, like you said, Catherine, kind of take the bull by the horns immediately and address it.
And I think it would be good to offer an alternative. So perhaps that's not the best fit for that particular broker, but if the company has other brokers, or if we're in this sort of class, we all know other professional, you know, brokers in the industry where we can refer someone to an outside company where they can get the service that they're looking for. That, you know, it could have been a male, female situation, any number of things. So. Well,
and we know it wasn't a language problem because she had had several telephone conversations with him.
Mm-hmm.
And so there wasn't a language barrier there, mm-hmm. which can create a sense of discrimination. So.
Yeah, that's difficult too. I mean, that's difficult just for a comfort level, but may have nothing to do with the protected class.
Right, exactly.
I think what else is crucial here, first of all, we are going to interview both parties. We need to understand why he felt that way. It's also very important that we document all of this.
Yeah, that was my next. Yes, make sure you're documenting it. Make sure that you maintain calm. And this is one of those times you're going to hear me say it quite often, is to be the calm in the storm. Okay, is to remain calm. Don't become defensive, but simply be the calm in the storm, the fact finder, and the resolver of the situation. Jeremy, anything to add from a legal standpoint?
This is a very, very good discussion.
I'm sorry?
No, I think you all had it. I think you all
Yeah,
had
I think we got that one good. Is Katie back? Well, let's just move on to number 2 as a group instead of breaking
Hey,
out.
Deborah,
Yes.
Deborah, can I just have you recap? So how do we do that without any liability or that little guilt thing that you're saying on taking that in? So when we talk with Matt, what's the fine line there? That I know that we want to be able to say something and like we talked, Marty mentions, and we talk to both of them, but how do we do that with, I mean, where's that fine line?
Well, it's a very fine line. And again, it comes down to maintaining the calm, appreciating his reaching out to you, explain your company policy. You have no tolerance for any kind of discrimination as a company, and do it kindly. Again, not raising your voice or becoming defensive. And then just simply say, I will have a conversation with Sarah. And is there someone, how can I assist you in your home search? Would you like to work with someone else? How can I help you? Again, we don't want to steer them to someone who's Hispanic, because then that puts us in a awkward situation as well. So you have to be careful there. But for us today, I really want, what are you going to do with Sarah? Let's change the focus back to Sarah, okay? And I agree with Marty. It could have been something emotional, some post-traumatic thing that triggered something in Sarah. So we want to approach Sarah from kindness also. And from, gosh, Sarah, I just want to let you know, I received a phone call from Matt, the client that you were so excited about. You want to tell me what happened? And then shut up, okay? You're going to hear me say that a lot. Just shut up and let her talk. And by letting her express herself, you're going to find out there, is this a training opportunity? Is this we're not a fit or a match for you to work for my company? I mean, where do you want to go now with Sarah as her managing principal broker? And all of you said one of the things you love about your job is mentoring and training. So you want to look, this is a training opportunity. And then I would wind it up with Sarah by saying, based on his reaction to your behavior, what would you do differently next time? And have her tell you how she's going to improve her behavior. So in any training moment, that opportunity to say, so Sarah, what did you learn from this experience? And what would you do differently next time? What did you learn? And what would you do differently? And if she's just blasé about it, so, well, I wouldn't do anything different, I don't like Hispanics. Well, then you've got a deeper problem there than, then that's your risk tolerance that's going to come into play. And how are you then going to manage that? Okay. So are you comfortable now how you would handle that situation from a management standpoint? Okay.
I would like to know if there's any particular script that you have as a good template. I've written down some of the things you've mentioned, of course, I'm sure we all did, but if there is something, Jeremy, that you have that would have different veins of responses based on different types of scenarios, if there's anything in particular you should refer us to, because I think it's time for everyone to really learn how other people perceive and just being disrespected, and how we can best bridge that difference and be aware, because a lot of these behaviors with people, whether it's the popular or majority population, you're privileged, you don't realize what you're saying or doing sometimes that can be very inappropriate.
I'm not sure that we have that currently, but I'll see what NAR has, and then we're in the process of updating our risk management materials. And so I've taken some notes on that, and hopefully we can put something together that will be helpful for you.
Yeah, that would be great. I know the military has E&O and they do some really good things because they make a lot of different people from many different backgrounds get along real fast and know what would be respectful or disrespectful. So that would be really helpful.
That's a good idea. And Jeremy, when we redo the course content, we can look at having some dialogues, because mine just comes off my head. I've been doing it so long, it just kind of just comes out. And sometimes you're not going to like what comes out. I'm sorry, but I have your permission though, right, guys? So, okay, let's do case study number 2. What would you do? And this one's a little different. This one's going to tug at your heart a little bit. Rick, who's 34, has Down syndrome and has recently been cleared to live on his own. He's very interested in renting an apartment in a complex that your organization manages. Okay, where's Catherine? That your organization manages and has the financial ability to afford the apartment. You accept the application and are getting ready to have him occupy the property. Through a conversation with Rick, you learn that Rick, in a few months, is planning on marrying a 25-year-old young lady who has a severe developmental disability that doesn't allow her to be on her own for any length of time for safety reasons. What concerns would you have in leasing this property? You've already accepted the application. Do you have the right to withdraw that acceptance because of the capacity of additional occupants that may move into the apartment a year later?
How many number of bedrooms were in the unit?
It doesn't say.
It doesn't say. Okay, so no. My opinion would be you would go ahead and accept the applicant, and then I would just be earmarking that conversation like in our property management notes. And if the situation arose again, the things that would be popping up for me would be this, the next applicant or next potential occupant needs to go through the screening process just the same. And then for me, I would be thinking about the addendum and screening process for a caretaker, which is not considered a resident, and it's a little bit different, and just making sure that our staff is informed about that and handling that correctly. So it would just kind of be a mental note I would be making in our property management software.
Right, and number of occupants based on the space is not discrimination. Based number of occupants and the
Correct.
Space.
Yeah.
So
Right.
that in that part of it would not be discriminatory.
Right.
But the mental capacity could be construed as discriminatory unless a safety issue then became the overriding matter.
So safety issue, what do you mean? Can you elaborate on that?
Well, it's
so essentially, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
So her mental capacity doesn't have any bearing on screening.
Right.
But you're saying unless there's an overriding factor of a safety matter.
Usually that's going to apply to other tenants.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Quiet use and enjoyment, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that does come up, and it is actually very difficult to deal with in a real world situation.
Right.
But you have to approach that sort of thing from a defined rules and regulations violation. And so it becomes about damage to property. It doesn't have anything to do with the disability. It has to do with, these are the rules. It doesn't really matter who you are, and enforcing the terms and conditions. And then you always try to work with that person. You try to resolve it. You don't try to just move them out. You try to help them take corrective action, but sometimes it ends up being a repeat violation, and you're essentially setting the stage to move them toward vacating the property. If they're a danger to the property or other persons.
That's a whole different scenario. So let's move on. Thank you for that, Catherine. And let's, so you can't discriminate based on the mental capacity, but you can make a decision based on number of occupants of a particular property. So
size,
and
that sort of thing.
yes, and Catherine, I love you, and with all due respect, this will be the last property management question that we will have, because I know no one else in the room. We're not going to be doing, property management from a broker. We're going to be focusing on brokerage.
Mhm.
It's just that it's difficult to teach fair housing and how to deal with fair housing without bringing in some of the property management aspects of it to kind of bring home the point. So
we have to educate our clients on that anyway.
Right.
Yeah, if we're selling investment property, this topic comes up. It may be, adjunct to what our main focus is with that client.
Exactly. So let's go on to number 3, and then we're going to wrap it up. And then you can do the other case studies, because we have to cut some things short, and I think you're getting it. I don't think we need to do all the case studies. So this next one though, Jeff, he said, broker in your office is working on securing a renter for a 6-unit apartment building. He normally doesn't do this type of work, but is doing it for a friend. Okay, this is where your antenna goes up, right? When your agents come to you and say, oh, my friend just wants me to write the offer for them. It's like, ugh. Okay. Jeff receives a lease application from Randy Regent. Jeff notices that the applicant was recently released from federal prison for drug distribution, and throws the application in the special file, the trash. Jeff absolutely doesn't want a felon to be in his friend's apartment complex. 2 days later, Randy speaks with Jeff and asks if his application has been received. Jeff lies, okay, red flag, and says no. Randy resends the application via Federal Express. Upon receipt of the application, Jeff tosses it away once again. Jeff rents the unit a day later to a Caucasian couple. As they are moving in, Randy approaches the couple and asks what they had submitted their application to Jeff. They state they had submitted it to Jeff the day before, and it was accepted the same day. Okay, red flag. Randy Regent contacts you to complain of discrimination due to the fact he is a Black man. Okay, so here's one of those. Was the discrimination based on him being Black or based on him being a criminal? And does it matter?
To me, you have a problem either way.
Yeah, you're damned if you do and damned if you don't on this one. And with the focus today on the disparate impact of criminal background checks affecting, and statistically, I'm not just spouting here, but statistically, disparately impacts Black men. And that is where that disparate impact actually comes into play. All right. Any questions?
Yes. So how do we deal with that? What do we say to Randy Regent about,
Well,
of course, from the broker standpoint, we're dealing with Jeff, right?
Yeah, you're dealing with your agent. And from a risk management standpoint, you have issues with him that have nothing to do with fair housing and nothing to do with discrimination. My issues with him are he lied.
Right.
And
Right.
he did intentional actions, that the actions themselves were discriminatory. Just the fact that he threw one in the trash and not the other one. So he's a huge risk management problem for you. And I'm not even sure that a training conversation would be appropriate here. You might want to have a deeper, again, this goes back to, are you going to tolerate lying? Okay, that's a yes or no. That's your decision. Personally, I would not. You lie to me, I might have been able to help you if you hadn't lied. That's why I tell my agents, don't surprise me and don't lie to me, no matter how bad. Don't surprise me and don't lie to me. So keep those in mind, you know, when you're training your agents. There's probably very few things that we can't fix or correct if you're open and honest, and part of your training is letting them know that, you know, you're not judgmental. And a lot of principal brokers are. I get the calls from them, you know, they're the doing this, the finger pointing, but there are times when appropriate action on your behalf is the right thing to do.
Does
That's
this
how
become, does this somewhat become that, I mean, Brandy's on the phone, he's saying that, you know, he just, you know, says what this case study is.
Yeah.
Complaining of the discrimination due to the fact that he's a Black man. So does it become more, I mean, do we follow the same kind of steps that we did with Matt, which is reiterating the company policy, offering, you know, apologizing and doing that?
Yes.
And then does it, but what if he does bring a discrimination suit? I mean, that's the whole E&O thing in the apology part, but then does it become a he said, she said, or because he is able to talk to that couple and they said they applied and then they were accepted the same day?
Well, your
versus,
best course, yeah, absolutely. Your best course with your agent is termination, because you're showing okay, we don't tolerate this. This is unacceptable behavior. He's no longer employed or no longer an independent contractor with my company, because we have a zero tolerance. And your policies, and we're going to talk about the 3 Ps, okay? Policy, process, and problems. That you can write that down. Deborah's 3 Ps. Policy. What does your policy say? What does your office policy in writing say that your agents are to do in this situation? My policy is zero tolerance. It's not a 3 strikes you're out. It's 0 tolerance. And that's your best defense. Another word you're going to hear me say often is, what is your defensible position? Write those words down. From a risk management standpoint, what is your defensible position in this situation? So are you going to be Pollyannish and stick your head in the sand and say, oh, I'm so sorry, because he brings in a significant amount of gross income into your office? Okay. That's a factor. Are you going to be have the chutzpah to make a risk management decision not based on financial impact to you? That's the tough one. I speak to principal brokers all over the country, and that is, you know, if we're going to bottom line all of this, and, you know, if we're going to have a checkbox, yes or no, am I going to make a decision to keep this person because they impact my bottom line? Is my risk tolerance enough that I'm going to leave that person in a position with my company that my risk exceeds, you know, is not as great as the income they bring? That's a tough
Deb, not to belabor it too much, but so I know that these case studies are true case studies, correct?
Yes, they are.
Yes. And so now it's up to Randy if he wants to accept what we're saying and accept the firing of him. Can he hold the brokerage, our companies, can he hold the brokerage still, though, to that now he lost this, being able to rent this because his application wasn't even considered?
Yes.
And he has a FedEx deal, and he has I mean, it could continue into a legal.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the likelihood is it probably will. And that's why you have to take that into account, Anita, when you're doing your risk assessment of what is your risk tolerance. Now, you know, and what is your tolerance of behavior? And one of the things that you have to also do a deep dive internally is, has there been other behaviors by this particular agent that would have been indicative to me that I might have a situation, a future situation? Was there something that I could have done differently? And each of you, you know, when you were introducing, you said, was there something I missed? Okay, this is one of those scenarios where, gosh, this just happened. Was there something I missed with him, either in the hiring, in the managing, in the, you know, in the behavior? Is there something I missed that I could have done proactively to have avoided this particular outcome? Okay, that's why your antennas have to be up all the time when it comes to risk.
Deborah, do you have a good sample?
Huh?
Do you have a good sample office policy that you like to use?
We do, and it's included in as a resource in your materials.
Oh, great. Thank you.
You do have a sample office policy, and that's going to be one of your assignments between now and next week, is to, you know, an office policy is not something you create and then put on a shelf. Your office policy is, I have mine, I live by it every day. Because 95% of the questions that your agents ask you, or the troubles that they bring to you, can be addressed in your policies and procedures. And that's why, you know, and that's part of our topic a little bit later, okay? I just like to start with fair housing because I like to get your blood flowing, get you pissed off a little bit, you know, get you a little bit going, and, you know, kind of, oh gosh, this is serious stuff, you know, and what am I doing, and what can I do differently? And am I aware of fair housing on a daily basis in my office? Is it something that's in the forefront? It needs to be.
Deborah, can I just say one thing?
Sure.
I just finished this week 2 days of the At Home with Diversity
Oh,
in
yes.
our class. Boy,
that's a great class.
I learned so much, and I would suggest everyone, if you have the opportunity, to take that class.
Yeah, it's a great class, the At Home with Diversity. And NAR is coming out with some amazing upgrades and additions to all of the fair housing and the diversity and everything. So keep your eyes out for all that. I don't know why I have a little tickle. I'm sorry. I'm trying to get rid of it here. Okay, moving along here. Okay, we're going to go into, in your manual now, I think we're on page, where are we? We're on page 10. Okay, we're going to start talking about advertising. And as it relates to fair housing and what your responsibilities are. You know, the Oregon Real Estate Agency rules and regulations, which I keep a copy right here on my desk. One of your responsibilities as a supervising principal broker is to approve all advertising. The two biggest areas that we get complaints at the real estate agency are fair housing violations and advertising. So are you monitoring your advertising to make sure that you're not violating fair housing in your advertising? The biggest place it happens, and you guys you give me so many opportunities to talk about stuff based on your introductions. When you're reviewing documents, are you reading your MLS remarks that your agents put in there before they go live? That is advertising. Your MLS remarks are considered advertising and fall under the Oregon real estate rules and regs, okay? Where we see most agents violating fair housing is in their MLS remarks. Oftentimes it's quite innocent, you know. And those of you in Portland, there's a conflict in the law. You guys in Portland, and I don't mean this with any disrespect, you have a walking store. Yet it's considered a violation of fair housing to say walking distance to a particular thing. So,
Wow.
So, you know, and that's where we see it a lot. Walking distance to the bus stop. Well, no. What can your agent say? Close to will say the same thing. But walking distance is considered to be discriminatory against those who cannot walk. Yeah. So, so obviously you want to adhere to your MLS rules. And a lot of MLSs today have a word check that it's some algorithm in the background that if a word comes up in your marketing remarks, it'll red flag it and let you know. So you want to make sure that you're not in violation of fair housing in your MLS remarks. So that should be a checkbox when you're doing your compliance reviews, is reading those remarks. One of the areas right now that's up for debate nationally is the use of the word family room in marketing. Some MLSs have made MLS rule changes to not allow the family room or master bedroom to be used. So when we talk about fair housing violations and advertising, some of it can be pretty subtle. You know, saying a great family home, a great bachelor pad, things like that. You have to be very, very mindful of the words you're using. A word can make a huge difference, you guys. So be mindful of those words. So any comments on that? Have you guys, you know, again, when you're reviewing your MLS, your listings, make sure that you're not discriminating in those. Okay, let me move along. So question, where do you feel your biggest challenges are right now in minimizing vicarious liability? And what does vicarious liability mean? It means that you're liable by the actions of somebody else. Okay, vicarious, meaning your agent screws up, you screwed up. Your agent makes a mistake, you're liable. Okay, so you are where the buck stops. So what do you guys feel based on our conversations right now? Where is your biggest, write it in there, where is your biggest challenge, your biggest Achilles heel with the focus on fair housing today and diversity and everything? So write it down, and I'm not going to ask everybody to share, but if you would like to share, raise your hand. Who has something what do you feel is your biggest liability? Anybody? Jenny, your mic's open. Did you want to say something, or?
Is it Jenny or Ginny?
Jenny. I'm
okay,
sorry.
No worries. That's okay. I can't confuse myself. I think as far as it goes, I think that having been in a situation where there were unity celebrations in the state where I worked, it was really scary to see how simple words, like you just said, have such an enormous impact on people. If you say y'all, if you say you all, if you put any group of people in any particular segment, or separate out, or say instead of man, black man, you know, you're just highlighting that you don't feel and know how to deal with diversity. So I think that was great, Lisa, of you saying and sharing to take that class, because we don't even realize what we will say or do. People just say things and they're cliche statements that we think it's okay. You know, when I taught, it was when someone said flip chart. I had no idea flip chart would be derogatory to Filipinos.
Yeah.
I didn't know that, you know, and I think it's just better to just go generic, because when we go international and people don't understand our slang, or if we think that we're being funny or we're using some topics. I had students that said rice rocket, and I said, what are you saying? You know, watch it. You know, it just is amazing. You know, people talk about radio, my ghetto blaster. I mean, stuff like that. When I would hear it, you just can't do that. And it shows our ignorance, because we felt that we were more in the majority, and it's not true. It makes someone feel very uncomfortable. And it's about being aware of those feelings and how we make people different. So the more we focus on how we're similar, the safer we are in our language.
Good. So from a leadership standpoint of your company, you want to teach your agents to manage their mouth. Manage your mouth. Manage what comes out of your mouth. And that is the perspective, or a good place for you to come from as a leader is, you know, sometimes your words can say that that's okay, you know, and lead definitely by example. So liability. The other area of liability that you have, and Catherine, I saw your hand up, I'll come back to you in a second, is the internet, Facebook postings by your agents. Do you manage and watch what they're posting out there? Does your policy, here's where policy is critical. Does your policy address public media and behavior of your agents in public media? It should, and there's wording for that in your in the sample that we've given you. And you want to check with NAR also, they have some great language for that. But two areas, and we'll get into the other one in a minute, is antitrust and fair housing, and how your agents are under your company banner sometimes exhibiting racial discrimination, bias in their online personas. So what does your policy say about that? And what are you doing to minimize that behavior? That's a tough one, because we believe in freedom of speech, and our agents are still independent contractors. They still have their personal rights of freedom of speech. However, when they're under your banner, you can have the opportunity through policy and ramification, policies and ramification of this behavior. You can minimize your risk. Yeah, Lisa.
You know, I find that it's so difficult, you know, when it gets into the social media aspect of all of this. And I've got 30 brokers, they all got their Facebook pages going and everything. And it's like, I don't know how the best way is to monitor that. Do I jump on once in a while? I'm not sure what to do.
You can't monitor everybody, but what you can do is have a clearly written policy, office policy, of this will not be tolerated. This kind of social media exposure will not be tolerated. We've had situations in nationally where an agent was fired the day some you know, they made some really disparaging remarks on social media, and the company publicly said, and it made the news, publicly said, we as a company do not tolerate this kind of meanness, you know? And so that agent was made an example of, and you're fired. No, there's no 3 strikes you're out. This was the company demonstrating zero tolerance. And so you can't monitor everybody, but you can have a strongly written company policy that says, because when are you going to find out about it? When somebody complains, you know, when somebody complains, somebody's going to call you and say, did you see what your agent said? Well, no, because I don't do Facebook, but, well, here's what they said. So then you go to your agent and you said, our company policy says this, you will not do that. You know, depending on how egregious it is, you either instruct them to take it down, you make an education moment of it, but you have a zero tolerance. And then you're able to say, you violated company policy, therefore you're no longer a fit for my company, bye-bye.
Deborah, I'm wondering
But
too,
how do you do that? You do that with a well-written company policy, and you implement it and you enforce it equally to everyone, So somebody said something, I'm sorry.
it's okay. I was just going to ask you, Deborah, because I think it's so right to have everything in writing, but everybody learns differently, and it's hard, especially now since we're in like Zoom meetings and we can't really have company meetings. I don't manage people as many of the other attendees do. But in my mind, the more we recruit people who are different and have them speak and involved, or have a video of saying what would be a slur for them. And sometimes it's even female, male. You know, there are guys, you know, at Chamber of Commerce meetings, the person that was just doing that one, Kim, you know, where I'll just say, yep, it's our old boys network, you know, and there's all these women sitting there and they're going, what? You know, it's just a really different thing. So it's almost as if we need to give examples or have it brought out, and maybe like what you did with the quiz, you know, just have a quiz where this is right or wrong and explain in an answer why, because what I hear so much.
Yeah, use these case studies. Use these case studies in your sales meetings. Are you, you know, when you're doing your company meetings, are you addressing this? Are you talking about it? Are you putting it out there? That's your defensible position, because if you get sued, well, this agent violated this, you can say yes. However, on this date, we addressed it in our sales meeting. On this date, I did an education. Remember, defensible position. What's your defensible position? We did training on this. I require training on this. We talked about it here, and you document. Okay. My defensible position is, you know, I teach this. Keep track of your agendas for your sales meetings. You know, if you get a knock on your door and they say you're being sued, you can, for the actions of this agent, you can say yes, but here's where I taught this, here's where we provided that, here's our policy, and here's the list of attendees at this meeting, and this agent who violated this has not been to any one of these meetings. You know, that's your defensible cover your butt position, is documenting when you've done that training and when you've provided that and what your policy says and what your toleration level is. Make sense? You guys all, are we good? Okay. So just to wrap up this whole fair housing things, one of the most important places that you can educate and train your agents is on that initial buyer consultation, that initial interview when they're meeting that person for the first time. Remember Sarah and Matt? Okay, do you have an official intake process that when my agents are meeting somebody for the first time, we train them. They have their checklist that everybody gets treated the same. You have the conversation, you talk about the agency disclosure, which we'll talk about separately, but you know, you treat everybody the same. And I'm going to bring it down to something very, very simple. If somebody walks into your office and you offer them coffee, you need to make sure you're offering everybody coffee. I know that's kind of a very, very basic explanation, but you need to be that consistent with everybody who walks in your door and everybody that your agents are working with. Does that, and that's one place where you can train your agents on that initial buyer interview. And the same as with sellers, you know, are they doing the same conversation with every seller about fair housing? You know, and are they walking away from that seller who says, I don't want this type of person to buy my house? How many of you have had that happen? Or who are these people? You know, just be careful of that. All right, guys, let me see here. Are we ready for a 5-minute break? Because we're wrapping up here on fair housing. Let me get here. Then we're going to break into my favorite subject, agency. Any questions on fair housing and your risk tolerance for it? No. Okay, let's come back and take 5 minutes, go stretch, go get your coffee. I'm going to refill mine, and we'll be back in just 5 minutes. Don't leave, don't check out. You can stop your video, but don't leave.
Deborah, this is Jeremy. My meeting's over, so I'm back.
We just broke for a 5-minute break.
Thanks.
You guys back? I think we're on page 12, right?
I think we are, Deborah. I'm just wondering, I have a completely different, I downloaded a completely different manual than what you have, but I have in the latest one now, but I've written up case studies that were totally different than this. And could you tell me what the answer was to number 6?
Number 6, case
Yeah.
study. We all should, I'm working from what was sent to you guys, so I'm not sure.
Yeah,
We'll
I
have-
don't know how I got some other, it was a 2019
That's the
Principal
one,
Broker
yeah.
Academy, and it has totally different case studies.
Oh,
But that's
I have the
okay.
same.
I'll talk to
Yeah,
Katie
I
about
got
that because but are you on page 12 now?
I think so. But do the fair housing quiz number 6, it was something just so that I know, I didn't have the answer for that just in case.
Let me find it here.
I think that was, yeah, if you wouldn't mind. Thank you.
Ginny, are you asking about question 6, the answer?
Yeah, did you write down what it was, Anita?
Yeah. Well, for the fair housing, it's D.
Yeah, all of the above.
Okay, good.
D. Yeah.
For 6, right? Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So on page
Thank you.
12, does it say, what do you say, Blitz? Is that what everybody says on the top of page 12? Okay.
Anita, you may want to go to, since you have a different one like me, you may want to go to your pull Principal Broker in your email and look to see that, and then get the handout, because when she did it and I saved it to my desktop, I'm actually seeing the case studies that Deborah's talking about now.
Well, there was
Yeah.
one that was sent this morning, which is the one, and yesterday, so it was sent twice, I think. So I'm working off the one that was sent this morning. So I was sure to be on the same one you guys were. And my slides don't match. The slides that I had for today don't match what I'm supposed to have. So don't get locked into the slides, because I'm like, my slides are not the right slides. So we'll deal with that. The slides aren't that important. They're just supposed to keep us on track. So, all right. So create a word for word broker response that would comply with fair housing laws. Okay. An Asian, we're not going to go through all these. We'll pick a couple of them. An Asian couple, your seller asks, what color are they? I want you to write these words down. And this is what I want you to teach your agents. I am legally and ethically unable to answer that question. Boom, done. I am legally and ethically unable to answer that question. Boom, done. There's no other discussion necessary with, with your agents if they encounter that. And if the parties can insist, then your agents need to be given the flexibility or to say, if that's important to you, I'm not sure that we can work together, because I'm not going to put myself in the position of violating federal fair housing laws. Period, done. This is one of those swords you die on, folks, and you train your agents that, so I am legally and ethically unable to answer that question. Boom, done. Any yeah, Lisa.
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's okay.
This is where what I call the love letters, and a lot of you know what I'm talking about. I have taught my brokers, you are opening yourself up to a huge risk by supplying those, especially with photos.
Yes.
Of the family that's wanting to buy the house. I said, you know, I just use an example. Maybe they don't like people that have red hair, or, you know, or they don't like a family who has a dog. You know, people like to put those photos in there. And I just tell my people, it's not a good idea.
There are some agents and there's some coaches out there who train that as this is the cat's meow and this is what you want to do and this is going to give you the edge. Well, quite frankly, from a risk management standpoint, it is a lawsuit waiting to happen. It's a target on your back. So we encourage, do not use love letters. Now they're independent contractors, but still, if you are going to use a love letter, don't include pictures. When you have multiple offers, don't even use names. If you know, I have a spreadsheet I'll share with you that for multiple offers where you don't even use the name of the people because that could imply some kind of discriminatory reaction from a seller. If you have a Hernandez and a Smith and a Muslim name, you're giving them the opportunity to discriminate. We are even seeing now agents in private remarks say, please do not, the seller has asked that you do not provide love letters with your offers. And I think that's a good risk reduction, risk management practice, quite frankly. And that's a conversation that your agents should be trained to have with the seller at the time you take the listing, is to have that conversation. Phrase it as, here's what's going to happen. You're going to get this. And when you get it, here's what you need to instruct me how you want to respond. So you want to, at the listing appointment, be training your agents to have that conversation. Yes,
So
love
Deborah,
letters. Yeah, go ahead.
Is that, would that be something that's not a policy issue, right? That is because they are independent contractors, or could it be a policy?
It could be a policy issue for sure, because you're saying our company policy is to, don't use the word not, but our company policy is to avoid using love letters. Now, I'll tell you who I like to write love letters to is the other agent once we have an accepted offer. That's where you train your agents to write the love letter. You send it to that other agent on the other side and you go, oh, I love you. Look what we're doing and look how we're going to work together. So, create the love there, not at, when you're presenting offers. So that's the time you want to use that love letter. So, good question. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. Those are very, very dangerous. And you as a company, as a principal broker, as a manager, you need to decide, is that how you're going to do it. But ultimately, it's the seller's decision. You do know that. Ultimately, it's the seller's decision to accept or to read or review. But a seller needs to make an informed decision on that. That's one of those conversations you need to have at the time of the listing. Make sense?
It does. So your comment though about having the spreadsheet without the names on it, if the seller wants the names, then we have to give it to them, right?
Well, and you're going to educate the seller and you're going to say, we have a multiple offer situation. I'm going to present to you, with your permission, all of the offers based on terms, price, and terms. Once we've determined or narrowed it down from price and terms, then I'm going to provide you with all of the paperwork. Now, hopefully the seller's already received a copy of the contract in blank. One of the things I train agents on is that when you take the listing, you give the seller a copy of the purchase and sale agreement at the time of the listing. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, when we receive an offer, this is the document it's going to be presented on. Here's a blank copy. Please read it. please, because you don't want them at the time you're presenting the offer or offers, you don't want them at that time figuring out what that paperwork is. You also want to have your agents trained to say to them, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, here's the legal document that when we receive an offer, that the offer will come in on. If you have any questions, please contact your attorney to answer any legal questions. Boom, done. Okay? And it says that in black letters at the top of the purchase and sale agreement. Okay? So I'm giving it to them at the time of the listing, so that when I present multiple offers, they've already seen the legal part of it. So, because remember, when we're presenting offers, they're going totally on emotion, and then they're going to justify it logically. Okay, so we're giving them the opportunity to get some of that logic crap out of the way by giving them the contract up front. Make sense? From a strategy, as a, you know, from a negotiating standpoint, how to make your life easier as a listing agent and how to train your agents on how to do that. Okay. So pretty much on the what do you say blitz, again, I'm legally and ethically unable to answer that question. And this is where you make those hard decisions of, do I move forward with this person as a client or not? Okay. All right. So give me a couple of takeaways from what we've covered so far. What are a couple of takeaways that you guys are, you know, because remember we talked about at the beginning of these aha moments, or these, oh gosh, I gotta remember that, or, you know, what are some of your ahas or your takeaways?
We don't manage risk, we manage activities that create risk.
There you go. That's a great one. That's, in a class, that's one of my main categories. I didn't write this course content, so I'm teaching from somebody else's stuff. Yeah, absolutely. We manage the activities that create the risk. Good. That's a good one, Marty. Who else has an aha or a takeaway that you're going to implement or stop doing? Sometimes we go, oh, anybody?
Okay, I've got another one.
Okay, Marty, you're the hero today.
Actually, we just went over it, and it was something I used to do when I first got into the business and just forgot about, is when listing a house, go ahead and provide a blank copy of the sale agreement so that they can review that in advance. And, you know, you can go through and review that and explain a lot of things. I love that idea in a multiple offer situation of creating, and you said you were going to share a spreadsheet.
I have a spreadsheet that's really, really basic. I mean, it's like just as basic can be.
I'm a very basic person. So, but having that and being able to present an offer based solely on its price and terms, I think is brilliant in that sort of environment, because it never occurred to me, and it's just because it's the way I'm wired, I think, never occurred to me to think that my clients might make some decisions based on anything other than price and terms. So I love that idea. So thank you.
Good, thank you. Anybody else? Kim, your mic's off. Do you have something?
Well, I can't beat what Marty is. Obviously, he's better with the words than I am. But I enjoy the real estate aspect of what pulls someone's heartstrings. But to do that in a professional, unintentional, discriminative, you know, I got a multiple offer situation, and you know, I put names on there, but I absolutely understand why you shouldn't. And the other realtor sent a picture. It's a single mom with her child, and absolutely that's a discrimination potential issue. But it gave my clients peace of mind to know that all this work that they did on this house is going to a single woman raising her family, and they're a little bit more apt to be concession oriented if anything should come up, rather than, I don't know this person, I'm just going to be. So it's just, and I love what Marty said, don't manage risk. We manage the activities that create risk. And you know, one of the reasons why I'm here is I do suffer terminal foot and mouth syndrome. It's and you know, I'm licensed, I can open my own firm, but I'm a risk, and I know that. So I'm glad to be here, and thanks, Marty, for your smart words. I'll take better notes.
Great. All right, anybody else have any other takeaways so far? Okay, let's move on. You should be on page 14 now, right? And what I love about this is learning from each other. Okay, we have a lot of really smart people in this Zoom room right now. And the beauty of the Principal Broker Academy is the instructors are more facilitators of knowledge and learning. We give you the information, but we also saw this when we created this, which with the year I was president of OAR was when we started this. So this has been my baby from day one. But we wanted it to be a collaborative learning environment so that you're not just up here listening to a talking head for all these hours. We want you to learn from each other. So that, and I see that happening already with this group. You guys are already starting to get to know each other, kind of find your sense of comfort that you can speak up and you can talk, and we're not judging. This is a safe zone. Anything you say or anything you're feeling is in the safety zone, because we're here to learn together. Okay? So we're on page 14, state-specific stuff. Do you know what's amazing to me is how many agents out there, and I know they work for me and they work for you, and they don't understand or they don't know the difference between the Oregon Association of Realtors and the Oregon Real Estate Agency. They don't. They just don't. Hopefully you do. And we're going to talk about the role of the real estate agency in your business, and as a managing principal broker, why knowing and having knowledge of the Oregon Real Estate Agency and their role and their function is critical. So the real estate agency, it's a department of the Oregon government, and it consists of the real estate commissioner, which is now Steve Strode, who was a realtor, and he's been awesome since Gene Bentley retired. I serve on the board of the Oregon Real Estate Agency, which is made up of 7, it's a 7-member board that meets monthly. And part of the role is licensure. So I'm not going to tell you how many credits and all that kind of stuff. You guys already know all that. But they're the oversight for licensure. And then you also have the Oregon Real Estate Statute and Rules. And I'm going to show you, I keep my book. I'm still a paper person, okay? I'm still a paper person. It's online. It's at OregonRealEstateAgency.gov. You just go on that site, you sign in. This is all there for those of you that like to do it high tech. But I'm still a paper person, and I have it all marked and earmarked and everything. Because everything you know or need to know is in there. Now, what are your duties according to the Oregon Real Estate Rules and Regulations as a supervising principal broker? So some of these I'm just going to breeze through. Number one is you can't loan your license out, okay? You can't loan your license. You can't just say, here, use my license. There's actually case law on that where agents and principal brokers actually did that. You as the principal broker are responsible for maintaining the RBN. Y'all know what the RBN is. It's your registered business name, and that has to be renewed annually now. And you're responsible for making sure that all of your branch offices are registered with the real estate agency, those types of things. That's all administrative stuff, and it's all listed for you. I'm not going to itemize all that, but just know there are responsibilities. Now, what happens when you have more than one principal broker licensed with your company? I know with my company, I have like 50 principal brokers. Does that mean they're all managing principal brokers? No, it just means that they have a license that's a principal broker's license. In Oregon, there's only 2 licenses for brokerage. Now there's property management, but for brokerage, you're either a principal broker or a property manager. Okay. But with a principal broker's license, you could also do property management, but with a property management license, you can't do brokerage. You guys get that, right? You understand that? That you can do property management with a principal broker's license, but you can't do brokerage with a property manager's license. So. When you have more than one principal broker, you're required by Oregon law to have in place for every single principal broker what's called the written supervisory or a shared responsibility agreement. There's a sample of that in your resources. And what that does is it says to the real estate agency when they ask you, who's responsible for who? Okay, who's responsible for who? And as a principal broker with a principal broker's license, what is your management authority? What is your supervisory authority with the company under the one principal broker who's the designated, even though that's not an official category, but the one principal broker who's the THE principal broker for the whole company. It's confusing to the public right now, and I'm not going to get into the argument over another category of licensure, but right now, that's where we are. So most of you in the room have already got your principal broker's license. Some of you are working on it, but that's where we are with that. So any questions on the shared supervision or supervisory document? How many of you have that? Don't raise your hand because I don't want. Anyway, hopefully you all have them in place for everyone who's licensed with you in your office. Okay, setting up a registered business name. Your registered business name with the real estate agency is different than your LLC registration. You don't have to be an LLC to register a business name with the real estate agency. Your RBN can be your own name. But your LLC or whatever corporate structure you have is set up with the Secretary of State. And an LLC can be your registered business name, okay? Most of you have already gone through that part of the process and understand that. Any questions on that?
Can I go back, that book that you have on your right, that is because I'm looking on the OAR website, where do I find that to download it?
Oregon Administrative Rules. Oh, it's backwards.
No, I can see it.
Administrative Rules.
Okay, thank you.
Well, there's 2. There's the rules and then there's the the statute. So
thank you.
It's thick. I mean, when you print it out, it's thick, but everything you need to know is in there.
Okay. Thank you.
And a DBA, if you're doing business under a name other than your registered business name, you have to register it as a DBA. For example, eXp Realty LLC, we had to file a DBA as eXp Realty because we weren't using the LLC in our branding. Okay, so if you're using branding and your RBN, your registered business name, has an LLC attached to it, that you have to use that in your branding unless you filed an also doing business as. Yeah. So make sure if you're doing any business or marketing or branding other than your RBN, that you've registered a DBA. Now, I know we're gonna talk about it a little later, but I want to talk about teams right now during this, because teams are part of our lives now, and team marketing and team branding is one of the areas that we get the most complaints about. And teams marketing without it being clear and obvious to the public, the company that they're with. So part of your supervisory responsibility with your agents is, if they're marketing as a team, is to make sure that it's clear and obvious the company, the RBN, is also part of that marketing and branding, okay? Y'all have seen it, you know, huge sign. I know I've had agents with my company guilty. I'm not without fault here. And again, it comes back to, are you approving signage? Are you approving all marketing and advertising that your agents do? But the whole team world right now is being looked at by the real estate agency. It's being looked at nationally because of the huge explosion of teams within companies and the misleading of the public as to the team actually being the company. Okay, making sense? Are you guys following me here? And as a managing principal broker, when you have a team under you, even though there's a quote team leader, you're still responsible for every one of those members of that team. Okay, so you want to make sure that if you have a team that has a team leader, that that you have clear guidance for them on what the rules are of your company and the rules of the real estate agency. And what I'm talking about here specifically is supervision. Now, Oregon law at this point does not require a team leader to be a principal broker. However, my company policy does. If you're going to be a team leader, you're going to be a principal broker. And you're going to have entered into a supervisory shared supervision agreement where you're agreeing, even though I'm ultimately responsible, I get that. It's going to go uphill. But as my defensible position for a team is, if you're going to have a team and you're a team leader, you're going to have a principal broker's license, and you're going to enter into a shared responsibility agreement or a shared supervisory agreement with all of your team members listed, that you're responsible for the day-to-day management and operation of their behavior. Okay? Makes sense? And I know, Kim, you're part of a team. You're on a team and you guys market, and it's clear the company you're with. I watch your marketing. I see it. Brilliant, nicely done. You guys are an amazing team. And it's clear in your marketing and advertising that you're a team within another company, that you have a company umbrella. So yeah, good job on your great team marketing there. The other thing is, if you're marketing or running a team, is, you know how a team will market, they'll have a picture of their team and there'll be like 37 people. Every one of those people need to be licensed, or it has to say specifically that they're not, okay, by name. Okay. So any questions on that?
Question.
Yeah.
A few of my agents want to have their own LLC. Is that okay to be paying their commissions to their LLC?
Yes. You cannot license an LLC. Your license has to be in your individual name, but you can have an LLC for purposes of tax planning, and you can instruct that your commissions be paid to the LLC. Yes. But you want to have that all in writing and verified. But yes, you can pay to an LLC. And a lot of agents set that up that way. So any other questions on the team or the doing business as and all that you're responsible for? Okay, now the next thing here, documentation and compliance. But that was one of the things y'all talked about when I said, what keeps you up at night? And you were like, oh my God, I got a call from my agent that this property is closing tomorrow and they want their commission disbursement to the title company, but they haven't even turned in their paperwork. How many of you have had that happen? Yeah, it happens. So the brokers are required to turn in their paperwork to you within 72 hours, okay? Or 3 banking days. We say, we cheat, we tell ours 72 hours. My policy doesn't include banking days, even though the law does. Just a little bit of hint there. Give them less time than the law does, okay? Give them less time. And that is that they have that to give it to you. Now, you have 7 days, 7 banking days to review, and that includes those 3 days. Okay, it's not an additional 7 days. So if your agent takes that full 3 days to get it to you, that only gives you the 4 banking days to review and be in compliance. So that total, that 7 days includes the 3. A lot of principal brokers are under the misconception that they have 7 days. No, they have 7 days, but it includes the 3 days that your agents have to turn it into you. How many of you use like SkySlope or paperless pipeline or any of those kinds of things? Okay, so that to me is one of your best defensible positions, because you can, you know, it's tough to get them to do it. I know, I get that. But if your policy says you will have it in to SkySlope within 3 days of acceptance or 72 hours, whatever your policy says, you've met your supervisory requirement and established your defensible position, okay? My defensible position is they're required to do it. It's in my policy. And if they don't do it, here's what happens. Now we have a fine structure in place, but I never fine anybody, but I have it as something I can do, you know, especially for the habitual, when they figure that there's money involved, it really does encourage them to get their paperwork in on time. I don't know why I've got this tickle, guys. I'm sorry. So
I have to share something. What I do, we're on the SkySlope system, and
yeah, I use SkySlope.
Yeah, I love it. It's you know, I remember back in the day when I was carrying these huge stacks of paper that everybody would turn in. Anyway, what I do if they're late, I have a form I make them fill out. They have to give me a full explanation as to why they would like to have their commission check in a timely manner. They better have that in the SkySlope file. Because well, sure. I have some that are notorious for it. And, you know, and it's like, oh, I don't know how many times over the years I can tell them, get your paperwork in. And sometimes it's just a battle.
Is that in your written company policy?
Yes, actually, we've got it in there. Yes.
Okay. Make sure, y'all, you're checking your company policy to make sure that that's in there, because that's your, you know, that's your stick.
Yeah.
Your carrot is you get paid on time. The stick is, you know, here's what happens if you don't do your paperwork.
And I'm curious for the good of the order of the group.
Sure.
So I inherited an office that has agents that have been doing this longer than I've been alive. And so, you know, their habits are very strong, and they didn't necessarily with previous management have you know, the wrist slaps and it was kind of just do whatever. So now coming into that, I get a lot of pushback on, oh, you're so strict with paperwork and stuff like that. So I'm curious just for, and I know there's agents on here that are newer to being management, want to maybe go into management. How would you suggest setting those standards without being like, I'm the new sheriff in town, you know, here's the rules, even though they've been in our policy book for ever since the company existed?
Yeah, and you're probably younger than most of them, and you're a woman, and you know, you've got to, your persona has to be one of strength.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And I would come at it from, you're protecting them. You know, it's for them. It's not for you. You're not, you know, last thing I want to do is review your paperwork, but
Right.
Oregon law says I have to. And when you're not in compliance, if we ever got audited, you could lose your license. Okay, so make it about them and why it's important for them and that you're protecting them in how you approach it. Anybody else have any suggestions? Those of us that old dogs in the room. Well, not many of us. I'm not going to call anybody by name because then I'd be calling somebody an old dog, but I'm not going to do that. Any other thoughts, you guys?
I was advised that if we had late paperwork coming in, to be certain in the compliance file to make a note, like compliance note, late docs, you know, contract was dated this date, first received for review on this date, and initial it. That way it shows that I'm documenting, you know, the contract and when it was received to be sure that if the file is audited, it wouldn't come back on me for not enforcing it, and then to be able to counsel the agent and remind them about the statute.
Yeah, we actually have some templates that, you know, it's, I have one contract compliance. I have somebody who all they do is contract review. That's all they do. That's their job. It's a principal broker. That's all he does all day. He's an engineer. That would drive me totally bonkers, but he loves it. And he catches all this little stuff that I would probably miss. But anyway, we have some templates. And, you know, in SkySlope, there's a drop-down menu that when you respond to your agent's missing documents. And we do search by that every day, missing documents. And then you can see, are there still files with missing documents? So the important thing is to have a system in place for how are you documenting that you're reviewing the file, and if the file is incomplete, what is your process? Remember, policy, process avoids problems. Policy, process. What's your process for making sure that the file is complete and all your required documents are in there and dated and signed? What is your process, and is it in your policy? But yes, Cindy, you're in a tough, what you do now and how you manage this now is going to determine because you need to earn their respect and you need to make it about them. I want to, by the time we're finished our 8 weeks, I want to hear from you and see how you've grown with kind of that little bit of encouragement from this group of, you know, be strong. Yeah.
One of the things that I learned when I was with a brokerage before, and when you go to different brokerages, you learn different policies and you pick up different personalities, or just like you said, Deborah, you know, their procedures and processes. And one of the things I was alarmed to know as a brand new broker is that I wasn't protected for my risk. I thought because I was with the brokerage that was what partly I was paying for, is that legal protection. The principal brokerage is protecting themselves. The individual agents need to also have extra risk protection for them. So that's what made me all of a sudden realize I never had a problem so far, thank God, you know, but the paranoia that all of us feel that keep us up at night is because we just don't know what we don't know, like we've said, or if we've had this mistaken impression when we were with other brokerages that they had our back. But in fact, you're all alone. If they're needing to show their supervisory control over you, that's what the focus of the money is going to be spent on, not on protecting you as a broker. So when you're saying to protect your brokers, Deborah, that's a really good point to point out to them so that they don't get lax, because that's what I find with people when I'm working with them, whether they're new or a lot older at brokers. I'm just shocked at how some people are still using whiteout on contracts.
Oh, I just had one come the other day.
Oh my God, you know,
I was shocked.
I'm just appalled. Or the other thing is that one of the case studies in the handout that we received that wasn't the same as what we're going through is that, you know, you forget to sign, you know, some of your listing agreements and
you go
give
back
a
after the
copy
fact?
of your signature. You're waiting to do that at the end. And if you don't have it, it's not a legal document. You have to sign it too, and your clients have to have copies of it or it's not enforceable. You know, so crazy stuff like that, you know, that people learn, or, you know, not keeping track of, you know, client communications when you've said this or that, or when they've asked this or that, or this crazy texting, you know, and I'll send that over to my own email. So I have an email memorializing what we talked about on the phone, because sometimes people just don't listen, and I don't either. And if I all of a sudden see something in writing and I'll still, moving too quickly, go through an email too fast, and I won't answer certain questions. But you can't have people give you price and terms in a text and think that you're legally defended, because they could have given you a typo.
Right. So thank you for that. And so I want to wrap this up by saying, when you come at them from a supervisory control attitude, you're going to get pushback. They're going to go, who do you think you are? But if you come at them from a, I'm here to help and protect you, and I've got your back, but I can't have your back if I don't have the information. So if you come at them from that mindset, so rather than, I'm the manager, I'm in control, you will do this, that's why you're going to get that pushback. So just try changing a little bit, as my grandfather would say, you can catch more flies with honey than vinegar. You know, now there's some of them, and we all have them. I know there's some of them out there, you could use all the honey in the world, they're still not going to turn their paperwork in on time. So I have a policy that if your paperwork is consistently not on time and sloppy, you will be required to hire a transaction coordinator or an assistant. You will be required, or go somewhere else. And I think you, as your policy can say, if your consistency, you know, if you're consistently late with your paperwork and it's sloppy and incomplete, then we will require that you have a transaction coordinator or an assistant. You can do that, and it doesn't violate your independent contractor. Because remember, you got to be careful about what you make mandatory. Okay, but if you tie it into compliance, you're not complying. You're not in compliance with what we're required to do by law. Then we can require and request that you have an assistant to make sure that your paper, or go somewhere else. Go become somebody else's headache. And then call that, no, don't do that. I'm just kidding. All right, any questions on that? On paperwork compliance? And now, reviewing the paperwork. Somebody wrote a question about initialing every page. That was on another thing, that as as a reviewing broker, do I need to initial every page, every single page that I've reviewed it? Well, you notice that the new forms don't have broker initials on the bottom of every page anymore, thank God. You just need to document that you reviewed. The real estate agency has said that your electronic approval of paperwork, like in SkySlope or paperless pipeline, complies with that requirement, okay? So somebody had asked that question earlier. That does constitute compliance, is when you're reviewing a document electronically and you say approved, how SkySlope works, you've complied, okay? And those are time-stamped. So that's another part of your defensible position is your timestamp of when they turned it in, because uploading it into SkySlope is when you have your or paperless pipeline, or any of those that you use, you have that proof of when they're turning in their paperwork. Okay? Any questions?
I'm just going to make a suggestion.
Sure, Marty.
Since you use SkySlope, and if I'm off track here, tell me to shut up. I actually look at the paperwork, because you go into SkySlope and it's easy to just accept something without actually opening it.
Yeah, no, we open it, yeah.
I have.
Good point.
I'm sure this was accidental, although they made this accident numerous times. I had one broker who was just uploading blank documents in as placeholders, thinking that, maybe my predecessor didn't do this, but, I just made it very, very clear.
Look at Peter.
You upload it, I actually do look at it and review it.
Exactly.
And so, and then reject it. I reject my own paperwork sometimes because, looking at it a second time, I realize I've forgotten something or I've phrased something incorrectly. So, yeah, I mean, if you're using that sort of system, open that document and scroll through it and make sure that you actually did review it instead of just
Absolutely, and
accepting.
that's why especially pages that have blanks on them, we train our agents never leave any blank. If it's NA, put NA in there, and you should be training your agents to do this also. Never, a blank is an opportunity for a lawsuit. So, never leave anything blank if it's NA. And even if it's a default, where it has a blank, if not filled in, it's 6 days, put the 6 days in there. Don't leave it to default. Don't be sloppy, and train your agents. Don't be sloppy. Don't take shortcuts. Fill in the blanks. And that's a great suggestion, Marty. And if you are using SkySlope or paperless or any of those others, that drop-down menu and that notify agent is the best tool you have. And that's an educational tool also, because when you reject that document, you have the opportunity to say, here's why I'm rejecting it. And here's what you need to do to correct it. Nicely, please, pretty please. But that's also your defensible position of showing that you've supervised the paperwork. Good, yeah. But I've had agents do that, or they put up, you know how in SkySlope you have the tabs that label the documents? Okay. We will reject them if the wrong document is under the wrong tab, because we had an agent one time who consistently, no longer with us, might be with one of you all, but I'm not going to say names, who consistently would load the contract and put the contract under every tab instead of breaking out the documents. So yeah, they're sneaky. They're very creative. It's like creative sneakiness that are lovely little agents that we love all of them, but they're very creatively sneaky. Okay, any other questions on that supervision of your paperwork and making sure you're in compliance? And obviously, hopefully you're doing regular contract training on how to fill in the blanks and what goes in the blanks. Another tool that is an amazing tool that I use all the time when I teach contracts is in Aura Forms. And it's it's called the Real Estate guide, and it breaks down every single paragraph of the contract. And then there's a second one, and it's amazing to me when I teach contracts how people don't even know that document's there because it's not one they use. So when you do the ORIF drop-down menu, there's 2 tools that I encourage you to have your agents use, and that is the guide to the contract, which lists every single paragraph, what its purpose is, and it even has links that, and you can make it a sales meeting topic each month or each meeting, do one of the paragraphs, and then it has links to additional information about the purpose or the ramifications of that particular paragraph. So that's an amazing teaching tool that you have right at your fingertips through ORIF. And speaking of ORIF and SkySlope, did you guys see the announcement today that they finally worked out the agreement and that you're going to be able to do start your transactions in SkySlope instead of having to go to Zip Forms and then transfer them over? So that's a huge, for those of us that use SkySlope, I was like, thank you. That's just going to be amazing. But make sure you're documenting training on contracts, both contracts and listings. And I do it in 2 classes. I do the contract, and then I do every month I do a contracts and then a second class on addendums, because you want to keep those 2, you need 2 classes, and each one's 3 hours. So I do 3 hours on the purchase and sale agreements, because there's different ones, and then a 3-hour class on addendums that, and just go through the ORIF drop down. So you should be doing that at least once a month. And if you have new people, you need to be making it part of your introduction training. Okay, moving along. Okay, continuing a file when you transfer companies. Can that happen? Absolutely. Can you transfer a file to another company? Yes. There's forms. It has to be agreed to by the seller or the client. Everybody has to agree to it. And you need to make sure you have forms in place to accommodate that. Okay, so yes, that can happen. Okay, but let's talk real. Okay, you've got an agent moving into your office from another company. You certainly want to help that agent, but I always instruct them, the listing belongs to the company and the principal broker, not you. We will not advise you. We will not help you in terminating or moving that listing over should you decide to join our company. We will not do that. We will not tell you how. We will not show you how. That is a conversation that you need to instruct them to have with their principal broker, because they're violating Oregon law if they start having that conversation with the seller about canceling to move to another company, plus a violation of the code of ethics. So make sure if you're bringing somebody on board from another company and they have active listings, that you are in no way instructing, helping, advising on how to terminate that listing with their other company. What you want to tell them is you need to have that conversation with your current principal broker, and your independent contractor agreement with that broker should determine what happens. So now I'm going to get to what you need to do for when somebody's leaving your office. That should already be determined and decided before that day comes. So it needs to be in your policies and your procedures or your independent contractor agreement that if you should leave, we will accommodate your listings being canceled and moving with you, or we will not. And if you are, here's the process that you have to go through. So again, if somebody's moving business to your company from another company, that's between you and that other principal broker, not the agent and their seller, or not the agent and their clients. The parties that have to make that happen are the principal brokers and the parties to the transaction or the listing, okay? Do you guys, I know this, it doesn't happen very frequently. And then the other issue here is double check your E&O insurance. Because when you're moving responsibility of a transaction over to, I discourage moving transactions once they're under transaction to my company. I discourage it. We don't prohibit it, but we discourage it, and we determine it on a case-by-case basis. Because I personally don't want to assume responsibility for what another principal broker did or did not do from a supervisory and a compliance standpoint. So again, what's your risk tolerance for bringing on somebody else's failure, or in many cases they've done a great job. Okay, I'm not disparaging other principal brokers. I'm simply saying I don't want to assume their liability, not knowing what they did or didn't do. And will my E&O insurance cover this transaction because it started somewhere else? So those are things you have to look at your E&O insurance and say, what if the complaint started when it was with the other company, now you have it, and the complaint is now under you, but it's on actions or activities that happened when they were under somebody else's supervision. So you see why you've got to really evaluate whether you want that business to move into your company. Makes sense? Any questions on that? Cool. Okay. Let's, what time is it? We'll take another break in a minute. Okay, client trust accounts. We're on page 18. How many of you still actually have a client trust account? We don't. A lot of companies do not have a client trust account any longer. But if you do, one of your responsibilities is to make sure that you're doing the monthly reconciliation. Now, if you're a property manager, you have to have a client trust account. That's not an option. If you're property management, you have to have a client trust account. If you're brokerage, you're not required by law to have a trust account. But if you do have one, you have certain responsibilities, and you can be audited at any time. And this is where a lot of, if you read the back of the real estate, the Oregon Real Estate News Journal, the reprimands and the suspensions and the revocations of license, they're usually in three categories. With all due respect, Catherine: property management, misappropriation, commingling of escrow funds, trust monies. Okay, those are the two big issues where you'll. Or the third one, believe it or not, is somebody failing to renew their license and continuing to practice real estate. Those are the three biggies: is property management, violation of your trust account, and not renewing your license on time and continuing to practice real estate. So those are three risk management areas you want to be. So how many of you still have a trust account, a client trust account? Yay, look at y'all, how smart you are. So the title companies do that for you. You know, always have your trust, you know. Good. Then I'm not going to spend any time on that then. That's awesome. Okay, supervising advertising. We've already talked about that from a fair housing standpoint, but remember that your brokers are required by Oregon law to submit to you any and all marketing and advertising before it goes public, which includes MLS remarks, by the way. And they're required to maintain a record of that approval. That's your kind of safe harbor there. If they're doing something wrong in their marketing and advertising and they can't document that they've provided it to you for approval, you're kind of in a little safe haven there. And it's their responsibility to keep the records of that approval. So the important thing for you as supervising principal brokers is to make sure that you have in place your policies, okay, and process for approving advertising. We simply have a separate email And I have one person and principal broker who reviews advertising and marketing and then approves it or doesn't. And then we have a second level that has to go to corporate for logo compliance, the branding compliance. So, and it's all documented and we keep a record of it. So if I get a complaint that so-and-so, their marketing, they violated advertising rules and I can show where they have not provided it to me to approve, then the real estate agency is going to go after them. They're going to reprimand them. But you better make sure you have a policy in place on how you're doing that, on how you are requiring your agents to provide all advertising and marketing. The other thing is make sure your agents are advertising using their name as it is on their license, and it can be a common derivation of their name, but their name as it appears on their license. If they're using their name, if they're using a team name, that's okay, but it has to be clear that it's a team name.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
So like on my license, I'm Kimberly, but I go by Kim. I mean,
That's a common derivation, you're fine.
It's fine, okay, good.
Yeah, you're fine.
Over
Like
at
William, Bill, somebody who's a William going by Bill, that's a common derivation of your name. We had one recently whose name was, her name was, oh, I can't remember, but it was one that stuck out. Oh, her name was Elizabeth. And she went by Sally. And I was like, okay. I'm not sure Sally is a common derivation of Elizabeth, whereas Betty would be, because people named Elizabeth, commonly Betty is a common name for Elizabeth. I don't know why, but just make sure it's a common derivative of the name. Okay. And that your company name is obvious and apparent in all marketing and advertising. Your company name or logo. Okay, page 19, right? Are we following here, guys? Because we're going to get, before we go into team advertising, let's take 5, okay? What is the rule? The mind can only absorb what the bottom can endure. So stretch, take 5. Let's just move around a little bit. All right, guys. How we doing? Hanging in there, you guys? I know this is tough on you. Being in a Zoom for 3.5 hours is tough. But you're all hanging in there. So I want to wrap up with Teams real quick and just give you, I'm not going to read you what's in page 19 and 20. Those are all mostly referenced. So I want you to just review those in your own time. But I want to talk about Teams and wrap it up. There's a trend legislatively across the country to disallow a team name to include the words realty, real estate, or properties. Several states have passed legislation that a team name, California being one of them, cannot include those words, real estate, realty, or properties. And the trend started as a result of the confusion by the consumer of the team being the company as opposed to the company being the company. Okay, so if you have teams now, obviously it's still legal in Oregon to have the words real estate, real property, or properties in a team name or a team brand. But I would encourage you to, as you bring on new people or new teams want to be created, that you discourage the use of those words in team names, because there will come a time, I don't know this session or the next session, where Oregon will probably be looking at how teams are identified to the public. Now, Oregon says that a team name must include the words either team or group in identifying and branding of the team, but it doesn't disallow the words real estate, realty, or real property. So this is just kind of a crystal ball, but looking into the future of what's probably going to happen when it comes to teams. Any questions on that? Or comments? What do you guys think? I mean, how are you dealing with teams? Let me get some feedback from you. I know teams within my world is one of my my challenges as a broker in charge, because they're oftentimes the team leader filters their team from that next level up of supervision. Do y'all know what I'm talking about? Where you have a team leader and they bring in their team or their covey and they bring them in and they become the end all for what that team does or doesn't do, but yet who's still responsible? So it's really important to have a good team policy in your policies and procedures. Anybody else have anything to add on managing a team, being part of a team? I know, Kim, you guys are the shining light. You do it great. Or experiences with managing teams?
Yeah, so that was one of my experiences with the teams was in the advertising, and that the team leader was the one that was responsible for filtering and overseeing their advertising compliance. And then of course now looking at wanting to start my own team, being sure that we're structuring everything correctly, with you know, the right verbiage to make sure we're in compliance.
So
you
was
said
that,
was,
was that team leader a principal broker?
yes.
Okay, because if they're not a principal broker, they cannot be supervising or approving or doing any supervisory role if they're not a principal broker. And that's
Correct.
where- so, you know, if you're going to be allowing teams in your company, which you, I mean, that's the trend, you're going to do it, but, you know, make sure that a team leader, while Oregon law doesn't require it, they don't allow you to supervise unless you're a principal broker. So how can you be a team leader supervising people without being a principal broker? Yeah, that's great.
Correct.
Great comment.
Yeah, and in our market center, that was part of our policy. We required that team leader had to be a principal broker, and then with the division, you know, supervisory division and control, that they were responsible to oversee their advertising as part of that as well. And what was it you said? The key words were realty, real estate, and there was a third.
Properties.
Properties.
Or property, yeah.
Properties. So those would be words to not include in the name.
In a team name.
Yeah.
In your RBN, it's fine. It's, you know, that's fine. But in a team name, that's a trend across the country. Right now, it's still legal in Oregon. So a team can have those words in there. But as a supervisor and looking forward to the future, you know, that's something I tell my new teams coming on all the time. I said, if that's in your name, then now that you're going to do all of your new business cards and all your new branding and everything, now's the time to reconsider changing your team name to include the words group or team, and to not include the words real estate or realty or properties. And they appreciate that, because you're giving them something that could have a financial impact on them in the future.
Yeah.
And Kim, I know, what is the name of your group? It's her name.
It's Adrienne St. Clair Group.
Adrienne St. Clair Group. And so her team is branded by her name, and it has the word group in it. So she's in 100% compliance. And it's always clear, their company logo is always in their marketing. All right, any questions on that? Okay. Okay, I'm going to move forward to page 23, because the rest of it is what we're skipping over is stuff you can read on your own and is good reference material. I don't want to read to you. So we know we have to, in order to be in compliance, we have to review documents and review paperwork and all that stuff. But what is the real estate agency discovered or found is what causes the problems in transactions, and how can you, as a supervising principal broker or managing principal broker, how can you help your agents stay out of trouble? Because that's pretty much what you are. You're the keep them out of trouble. And I hope you guys get the Real Estate News Journal, or you subscribe to that and you get it every month. But and I know the first page you go to is the back page where all the reprimands and the suspensions are. That's the first page you read. That's the first page you go to, because you want to see if you know anybody who got in trouble. I get that. But what are some of the things that we're seeing consistently that are causing agents to get in trouble? And what can you do as a supervising broker to help them? Not control them, remember, help them. The biggest one is not dealing with problems when they start as a problem and letting them fester. I know as principal brokers, when you get that call, we all get the call, you won't believe what your agent just did. Well, I'll probably believe it, but okay, sock it to me. Y'all get those calls, you know, We hate making those calls as principal brokers. And just so you know, as a principal broker, I never, ever, ever call an agent of another company. I will always only call the principal broker. Okay, that's just the protocol, and never want to reach out to an agent directly. Go to their principal broker. So you know when you're getting those calls from the other principal broker. And I always try to approach it from, okay, we're on the same, let me explain it. Advocate for your agent, but don't be adversarial. See the difference here? So your role is to advocate. And even if they're wrong, and you know they're wrong, you advocate with the other side and you try to make it come to a conclusion, a satisfactory conclusion. But what I see happening now, and it's agent to agent and principal broker to principal broker, is this need to be adversarial as opposed to be an advocate for your client or your position. And they're two very, very different demeanors. And I think you can accomplish far more by coming at it from an advocacy for your client or your agent, as opposed to going in, you know, guns a-blazing, adversarial. It creates that tension that, again, I encourage you to be the calm in the storm. So not handling conflicts when they arise. And I said earlier on, one of the things I tell my agents, don't surprise me. You know, if you think something could become a problem, tell me now, call me now, text me now, let me know if, and I'll walk them through it. Here's what's happening. I'll give you an example. We had a closing that was supposed to happen on yesterday. Didn't happen. Somebody dropped the ball at the bank, didn't happen. I get a call at 8 o'clock at night. Buyer wants to park their RV at the property. Okay. Do I need a pre-occupancy agreement? Well, what are you going to tell them? Yes, you do. Yes, you do. You need a pre-occupancy agreement. If they're just going to park it there. And then okay, here's where you need to learn. There was more to the question. There was more to it. The question I was asked, they want to park their RV there until closing. Well, what they forgot to tell me, or intentionally didn't tell me, is they're going to be living in it while it's parked there. Okay, so this is where you have to tune in, you guys. And when they ask you a question, 95% of the time, there's going to be a deeper or another fact that if you don't dig a little deeper, you could possibly give a wrong answer by not having all the facts. And that was one of your fears, because I wrote it down, is, I think, Marty, you said it, did I miss something? Those were your exact, did I miss something in advising my agent? Well, if we don't ask the deeper questions, the likelihood is that we're going to miss something. If I hadn't have asked my agent, well, are they going to live in it? And she goes, oh, well, I don't know. Well, don't you think you should ask? So we continued on that line of conversation. Of course, they were going to live in it. Well, are they going to need electricity, and are they going to connect to the hose? I'm not going to get into all the details, but you see what I'm talking about, of doing a deeper dive into those questions when they ask you, what do I do? One of the things that I've learned through the years, and from a tremendous mentor of mine, is when your agents come to you with a potential problem, is to kind of give it back to them and say, well, what do you think you should do? What do you think you should do? And you'll be amazed at how smart they are. And how you can turn this, what could have been a potential serious problem, how you can turn it into an education moment and doing a deeper dive into asking the questions. Well, there's obviously more to this. So let's see where we're going with this. Did they get a pre-occupancy agreement? Yes. Will that agent ever ask me again if they need a pre-occupancy agreement? No, because we made a learning opportunity of here's why in this situation they need a pre-occupancy agreement. Now, I don't know what your company policy is, but ours is if it's more than a couple hours, you get a pre-occupancy or a post-occupancy, whichever applies, because it addresses. So how many of you, okay. I've had a house burn down between the time of a buyer moving in and closing. So what happens if you've given that buyer or the permission to move in without a pre-occupancy and the house burns down? So I'm obviously taking this to the worst case scenario, but the response I get from agents is, well, why do I have to do all that paperwork for just a couple of days? How would you answer that? Or they put in the purchase and sale agreement, seller to have to move out in 4 days, or they don't include a pre-occupancy agreement. I train my agents, counter with a pre-occupancy or post-occupancy, whatever applies. You counter with that if the other side hasn't presented it.
Yeah.
But my point to you, go ahead, who's talking?
Oh, I was just gonna say, I was an escrow officer for 18 years and there were actually a couple of different times where we had fires, right at closing, and we had occupancy issues. And so that's where it's so critical to have that in place and the insurances that are required in place.
Yep.
So that there's coverage, because it does happen.
Right. So when we're talking about, yes, thank you for that. So when we're talking about, managing your agent's transactions, obviously they're doing the transaction, but how do you, in that supervisory helper, not controller, help them? And that's making them feel comfortable with coming to you with those situations before they become a problem. Make that part of who you are. Make that part of your process. Okay, inadequate documentation. Ooh, this one gives me headaches. Not clarifying business relationships. No, I'm trying to figure out how to say this nicely, so I apologize. Agency disclosure and the disclosed limited agency. Those are the two areas where agents are dropping the ball 95% of the time. Your agents, my agents, they're all dropping the ball. Because when are they getting the disclosed limited agency signed? When they write the paperwork, when they write the contract. When are they supposed to be getting it signed? At the initial, right, at first opportunity, at first, yeah. So they're going through this whole transaction and they're getting this buyer to the point of buying, but they've never discussed the agency disclosure, or they've never had them sign the disclosed limited agency. That's one of the big ones where your supervision needs to come into play now, and making sure your agents are providing this form timely and establishing the relationships that the parties are agreeing to, okay? Legal representation focused on breaking a deal rather than rectifying concerns. Once an attorney gets involved for either side, shut up, okay? Just saying, if you're threatened with attorneys, shut up, just say, okay. Because the more you say in this situation, the more adversarial you have the potential to become, and the more you may say something that could be in conflict with your client's position. So once attorneys are involved, let them deal with it. Parties feeling abused during the process. There was a case recently where the buyer filed a complaint that they would have never done what they did. They would have never signed anything except that the agent forced them, made them, and these were the consumer's words. We actually, the case was decided in favor of the agent because the agent was like, here's everything I did, here's what I said. They documented everything, so they were okay. This person was looking for a reason to get out of the contract, not that they had really actually been abused or anything like that. Okay, I'm not going to go through all of these. Okay, misrepresentation. These are some cases that we've had, and I'm just going to go through these where agents were found guilty. Doctoring a well test. Falsely created a mortgage pre-approval letter. These are some of the things that agents have been found guilty of. They changed the timestamp. Using this is a good one. They had somebody else sit in while they were doing their continuing education. That's why we make you be live. That's why we have your videos on, so I can make sure you're all there. Listing property for sale without an owner's authorization. You know where your agents are getting you in trouble on this one? Coming soon. Because they start talking about a property coming on the market and they don't have anything signed yet. They just violated Oregon law and they put you at risk because they're marketing. Saying something is coming is marketing. And if they don't have written authorization to say that, you're at risk. So this goes back to what Marty said, manage their activities. Are your agents promoting properties to the public and your internal office is considered public? Are they promoting a property before they get a written authorization from a seller? Dangerous words to use right now is pocket listing. If your agents are using the words pocket listing, shame on you, shame on them. There is no such thing. You either have a listing or you don't. You either have authorization, written authorization to sell and market a property, or you don't. So this conversation about pocket listings is going to get somebody in trouble one of these days. Make sense? You guys see where I'm coming from on this one and managing activities to minimize your risk? So Oregon law is clear. You will not market a property without written authorization from the seller, period. There's no debate on that, but you're doing it every day. I see it on Facebook. Hey, look at this listing. My seller's gonna, we're putting it on the market. Nothing signed yet by that seller. But yet, oh, look what I'm gonna be doing. Your company is at risk when that agent does that. Okay, moving down these. Most of these are so just common sense. So we're on page 25. Okay, what are the top 5 things the Oregon Association of Realtors does for real estate principal brokers? What are some of the things we do for you?
Answer questions.
Well, the legal hotline.
Yep.
Okay. If you're a managing principal broker and you're not subscribing to the legal hotline, when we get off this call, that should be one of the things you do. It's $125 a year, and you need to be subscribing to the legal hotline and use it. I use it all the time, even if it's just to confirm something that I think I know. I forget stuff. I had a stroke in December. And every once if you find, I search for words sometimes because I'm still kind of recuperating from that. I call it my stroke of luck because it made me better. But I still struggle. And sometimes I go, I think I know that. I think I remember that. But I'll go on the legal hotline and I'll say, ask the question. And it's confirming oftentimes rather than telling me something I didn't already know. So use it for confirmation as well as finding out answers. Because sometimes when you get an agent who you know, they'll buckle in and say, well, that's not true. When I say it, it doesn't have the same effect as if I say, well, according to the legal hotline, you know, you're the source of the information rather than being the information. And that's
I'm going to second that, Deborah. I'm going to second that. I have been a subscriber for years to the legal hotline. They are the people that are there for you if you're questioning yourself.
Yep.
And you know, sometimes as managing brokers, we feel like, well, who do I have to ask? Who should I ask? And they are there for you. And I have to say, they're pretty darn quick with their responses.
Yes, they are.
Yeah. It's $125 per year well spent.
Yep. Absolutely. And again, if you're not a subscriber, do it when we're finished this class today, because it's saved me many a time. I mean, I have a corporate attorney and I have a staff attorney and I have a personal attorney, but they're a pain in the butt, you know, and you try to get a hold of them and they want to give you all this legalistic answers. And I'm saying, just tell me, can I or can't I? You know, is this okay or isn't it? Is this right or wrong? Instead of giving me a case law on why, I just want to know, can my agent do this? And Jeremy and Jenny and the folks at OAR, they know their stuff, you know, and I always feel confident when I utilize that resource. So any questions on that? I'm not going to spend time on, we all know what the OAR does for us. They're amazing. Let's go to page 27. We have 15 minutes before we're done for the day. And we're pretty good on target here on our time frames. I'm going to give you some homework to do. So what is, on page 27, what is the best process for onboarding a new broker to your company? What is the best process for onboarding? Give me 3 things and then we'll move on to the next one. 3 things. What do you do when you get a newbie? Just they're brand spanking new, got their shoes shined, you know, they got their license, they're ready to, you know, to tear up the world and make $1 million this year. What are you going to do? What are you going to do to help
Share
them?
your policy and procedures manual and have them sign off an acknowledgement of receipt and agreement to comply.
Absolutely. And an independent contractor agreement. Make sure you have a company independent contractor agreement. So you're going to have them do all that paperwork. Orientation. Do you do an orientation of, okay, we do 3 or 4 a week where new agents go in and we, you know, and you lay the rules of the road and how you're going to protect them. But it's where you start to establish that relationship with them. What else? What do you guys, any other good?
Signing them up for having them get scheduled for their contracts classes so that we have covered our standards and expectations, and then also how to then submit their paperwork for compliance. So having coursework and having that as part of their onboarding process to complete.
Absolutely. And again, somebody said it, but I think making sure that they have and they've acknowledged and they've read the policies and procedures. 90% of them don't, they just sign it. And then one of the things that you want to get used to saying all the time is, well, according to our policies and procedures. So when they ask you a question, what I try to do is, instead of answering the question, I will lovingly and gently say, oh, that's a great question. Have you looked at the policies and procedures? Well, no, I just thought you'd tell me. Well, let me tell you where the answer is so that next time you don't have to waste your time calling me to get the answer for something that you can easily get on your own. See how I was gentle with them, but I told them to leave me alone? You know, it's, it's clearly written in the policies and procedures what you do here. But, you know, you do it lovingly, but you also direct them to the source of that information. Okay, I'm going to wrap up with page 28. Because this is a result of a survey that that was done a couple years ago. And OAR asked your agents, what do they expect from you? Okay, what do they want when you're the person, you're their realtor mama or their realtor dad? You know what I mean? That's the role you play for so many of them. What is it that they expect from you? And but this list is pretty good. And you know, I want you to kind of check them off as we go through them. Professionalism in behavior as well as working environment. Are you professional in the persona that you present? Because they will mirror you in much of their behaviors. And are you clear on your risk tolerance and what activities you're willing to tolerate to minimize that risk? Are you ethical? Do you know the code of ethics? Can you quote the code of ethics? Do you live and do your business by the code of ethics? And do you give fair and equal treatment to all? And I want you to underline these words: regardless of production. Regardless of production. That's the tough one, you guys. Are you knowledgeable? Can they feel confident when they come to you with a question that you're knowledgeable to guide them? This is what they want from you. Are you knowledgeable? And have you given them the expectation that I don't know everything, but if I don't know, I know how to find out, or I know the resources that I can direct you to? Because none of us in this room know everything. We don't. But we want them to feel confident that even though we may not have the answer on the tip of our tongue, that we know where to get the answer, or we have the resources for those answers, like the legal hotline. Are we going to be their advocate? Even when they're wrong, unless they've lied or misrepresented or done something criminal, you know, if they've made a mistake, we're still going to advocate for them, and we're still going to help them through and help them to not make that mistake again, unless they've lied, cheated, stole, misrepresented, or any felony. Are you a trusted advisor? Do you give them advice rather than dictate? Because there's a difference. And one of the reasons I have agents tell me why they leave a company is because management dictated to me what I had and could or could not do. They dictated, and that was their word, not mine, as opposed to advise. And do you see the difference there between how you're running your office? And that it helps with retention tremendously, is when they know they can trust you to advise them and not judge them or not dictate to them or not do it for them. See the difference? They want to have access. This is the big one that I hear often is, I don't even know who my principal broker is, or they never call me back, or I can't reach them, or, you know, they want to have access to you within reason. Okay, that's what they want. They want mentoring and problem solving. And from what I heard with introductions, you guys are all, that's what you love doing. And you're all known for that. And you love the mentoring and the training. Providing education. And this is a big one, especially with new agents, because they come from a world of work an hour, get paid an hour. I work this hour and I get $20. And that's why, you know, most new agents fail, is they fail to make that transition from work an hour, pay an hour, to the entrepreneur of putting the time in for the reward of the finances in the long term. So providing financial, I teach financial peace and advise my agents to take some kind of financial planning. Do you have a business plan? Those types of things. Do you provide a friendly and supportive working environment? And do you help them make a living? don't make a living for them, but do you help them and guide them in that? So this is what they want from you. So are you comfortable? Did you check those boxes? You know, do you feel there's some of those areas where you might want to do a little work? But that's there for you. So I'm going to stop there for this week. And I'm going to ask you again, what are some of the takeaways from this second half of the class today? What are some of your takeaways? What are some things that you had those aha moments, or you did the, oh crap. And share, remember, this is a safe zone here. We're in a safe area. Hi, Jenny.
I think it has to do with our operations manual. Like, we have a really good, really thorough operations manual, but I don't refer my agents to go back there to find the answers. I answer the question. And so that's just kind of a good reminder that I should use that as a day-to-day basis of, hey, did you check there? Try that, give them that tool, because it kind of makes sense, right? So I'll reintroduce that on Monday and have people reread it and kind of just talk about it.
Yeah, and have it in your sales meeting. What we do in our weekly meeting is I cover every week, we cover one paragraph of the policies and procedures. So we cover one section of it. And then by the time, and I always cover one of the articles of the Code of Ethics. Every meeting, they know. Top of the meeting, policy and procedures paragraph, boom, here's what it says. Any questions? Next, Code of Ethics. We go through all 17 articles and then we repeat every sales meeting. Which is on the next page there is, what are some things you do to for your sales meeting to get people to come to them? We actually have really good attendance at our sales meetings. They're virtual and always have been, but I get really, really good attendance because they know when I go to this meeting, I'm going to get this, no BS, just boom, boom, boom. And I'm going to leave there taking something back that's going to help me with my business. That's why you do the meetings, not because it's Tuesday and it's 10 o'clock and I have to do a meeting and it's 5 till 10 and I got to go, oh, what am I going to talk about today? That's why they don't come. But if you tell them what you're going to tell them at the meeting and then you tell them, they respect that and they will come. And you're honoring their time. Okay, any other takeaways? I see, Catherine, you had your hand up. Did you have a takeaway from today or something? Aha.
It was basically the same as Jenny's about the policy manual. Ours is really old. And, you know, I definitely am, you know, ground central for our brokers and for our staff too. It's like I have all the updates. I know what our policies and procedures are, but they're not actually all down on paper. And things do change in this industry. So I feel like it's sorely needing updating.
Yeah. And that's your homework for today, by the way, is to, between now and next week, is to dust off your policies and procedures, blow the dust off, actually read them and look at the OAR example that is in your resources. And then next week, let me know what you discovered. Catherine, you had something else, or?
Well, I was just wondering if they stuck that in the risk management toolkit on the website.
It's there, and it's
Okay.
also in your there's a link to it as well.
I was just curious. Okay, thank you.
So one of my questions, Deb, on the policy and procedures manual is, if as it updates, like what Catherine is saying, how do you update your manual and how frequently can you do that? And do we need them to have it initialed, or how do we know that, I mean, do they need to initial it or sign it or anything to say that they understand it? And how frequently can you do that?
Well, we do it at a minimum once a year. At a
Okay.
minimum, we do a update, and obviously your procedures manual should be dated at the bottom as to when this one is the last update of it. And ours actually has a paragraph in there that your acceptance of this also accepts and includes any future additions or changes.
Okay.
And then we document that we did in fact provide that. So.
Perfect. Okay. Understood.
but that's a good way to do that. All right, guys, you've been awesome. Any other takeaways from right now? So your homework is to dust off your policies and procedures, review them, make sure they're current, make sure you're addressing those things that we talked about today. Read ahead in your information, okay? Because we'll be skipping through some of it. And we're going to do a deep dive into agency next week. Agency relationships, fiduciary responsibilities. So we're going to start off our morning pretty intense into agency. So I'm going to ask you to make sure that you've read the agency pamphlet. Hopefully you have, but if it's been a while since you've actually read it. And then I want you to also make sure that you have with you the disclosed limited agency for buyer and seller. So I want you to review those for next week, because that's where we're going to be starting off. Okay. Well, you guys have been great. I'll look forward to next Friday. Actually, next Friday, I will be coming to you live from a hotel because our president of OAR is being installed next Thursday night in Portland. So I will be at the Allison. So I'll have a different background. I don't know what the hotel room is going to look like, and I hope I have good internet, but I just want to make sure you guys know I'll be coming at you from a different, from my laptop. So hopefully we won't have any technical challenges, but bear with me if we do. Okay. Anything else for the good of the order?
Deborah, I had a question. I was hoping that when we're all meeting together like this, part of my hesitancy to have more staff or to get more people involved with me is the ahas about systems and policies, procedures, you know, to avoid problems, like you said, and process. And I would really like and benefit from, and that's why this was such an excellent resource, having you and having other people who've had major experience to share their templates, like your checklist for the multiple offers, or you know, like you're saying, the procedure manual. I'd also like to know how people are recording their transaction log, because being in different brokerages before, I've seen different ways of doing it, and I don't recall ever seeing a very distinctive way and which fields should be in a transaction log, for example, to show our deal transaction log, or just any of the templates that everyone does. I think it would be really helpful for us to kind of share our checklists and then actually have tools. I learn best when I do that, because then I know I can relax and trust the system. There was a really great book. I wish I could think of his name right now. If I can, I'll send it to you guys. But it talks about, it's Carpenter, I think it's Sam Carpenter, and it's about trusting or setting up systems. And then that way we can save our mind and all the nervous tension about covering this or not covering that by having a system. Because if we don't have those policies written out, or how we get from here to there, or how we put together listings or go through final walkthroughs, or how we protect ourselves from those types of things, we can have those templates, and then it really makes it step by step for new people and ourselves to make sure we're doing what we're supposed to be doing.
And everybody's encouraged to share those if their company allows, because some of it's proprietary. But yeah, I have some stuff I'm more than happy to share, and we'll do that, and make sure that you guys get that information. But there is the template for most of that is in your resources on OAR, so you do have a lot of those resources available to you. And when you okay, I'm gonna transaction log. SkySlope is our transaction log. Okay, so when you mention transaction log, that's one of the benefits of using a transaction management system, is that becomes that transaction log. And so if you're manually doing that, I would encourage you from a time saving, from a risk management perspective, I would encourage you to look into one of the transaction management systems. I know .loop has one. I know that SkySlope is one. There's Paperless Pipeline. Personally, I'm used to and use SkySlope. I find it CYAs for me very well. And I can look up any transaction, anytime, by any type of code word or search word. You know, I can search by agent, I can search by property, I can search by price, I can search by closing date. Every possible thing that I need for a log is in that system. So when we talk about systems, the best system is the one you're going to use first and foremost. The best system is the one you're actually going to use, and the simpler the better. But I find that, so to answer your question about the transaction log, that is one of those areas where you definitely want to get into a management program, a transaction management program of some type.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And highly encourage you. And you can do as one person, you can subscribe to SkySlope. I mean, you can do it as one person or Paperless Pipeline or any of those, but use those electronically as your log is my best advice on that. Okay, well, we're at the bottom of the hour. We're past 3 minutes. I promised I'd never do that, but good questions. Have a great week. I will see you next week from beautiful Portland, where I'll be. Right now I'm in Klamath Falls. I did not tell you guys where I am. I'm in Klamath Falls, down in the farthest southern part of the state. So see you guys next week. Have a great week. Bye, guys.